It's fine.
That's still out of your price.
It is, but it's still. I mean, just there are other people paying $1,800 for this apartment.
Yeah, but for you, $100 is like you're breaking the bank on this. I still don't have it.
Right, and I basically came in with a garbage bag full of all my documents, and they try to embarrass you and ask kind of really personal things, and you need this document, and I just kept pulling. I was like, you remember Rocket, Bullwinkle and a rabbit out of the hat, and it'd be a lion or a tiger or whatever.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was doing. Anyway, after 40 minutes of doing it, and the guy who was the boss guy, he was weakening, so he brought two other guys in, and I was like entertaining them to the point where then I saw this one kid. He's got issues, and so they were like saying, "So what do you do? What have you done?" I said, "Well, let me show you." I said, "Kid, let me see your palm." And I read it to him, and I just said, "Listen, everyone puts you down. You've gotten the wrong end of the stick your whole life. You're in this place because everyone is like saying what a loser you are, and you're not, And, just because your foot is about 2 inches, your left foot is 2 inches taller than your right foot, doesn't make you a loser. Sorry, that's not it. And you're not a loser. You're a smart guy. You're this, you're that." Anyway, one of the guys who really didn't matter, kind of was like, because he was the bully of that kid. And the older guy, who was like the boss, told the other guy to leave. And then, he finished it, and then told the kid who was 1 foot shorter. And he said, "How did you figure that out?" I said, "I just watched him walk in. And then I watched how he acted." And anyway, so the guy goes, "That's pretty impressive." And I said, "I saw you before you even came in here. We sat and talked to all the old people who live here for about an hour before you came in here." I said, "Well, I wanted to know if I actually wanted to live in this place, So anyway, I think I impressed him enough. So instead of being 85th on the list, I'm 16.
Wow, it sounds like the adopt a grandparent program at the cottage nursing home.
Yes, exactly.
I was a volunteer for that with the Red Cross many years ago.
Yep.
And this was the most low budget nursing home humanly available.
Well, this one is actually nice.
There's a guy named Johnny who had water on the brain.
Right.
And it was Jimmy. And the Jimmy Mobile was a Kroger shopping cart. Uh-huh. With pillows in it.
Well, that's, well, this place is way above that. It's really actually quite nice. And so I'm very happy to do that. And because if I do need to get my hips replaced, I'm going to need something more than, the deep green is in the deep, and no one can find a place except the squirrely rich people. Since the 1st of July, we've had 35 stupid rich people come down the road. Isn't this the bypass to go to Charlotte? I mean, it is a logging road.
A logging road?
Yes.
And you're navigating this with that pristine,
yes,
brand new
Porsche
Nissan van with only 300,000 miles on the car.
Right. And I'm doing a pretty good job. Oh man, I almost lost it today. I went to get out because I wanted to go see someone who needed some company, and I forgot when I was raking it so I could get out. I had put the emergency brake on so my car wouldn't roll down the hill backwards. So anyway, I did that, and I turned around and went home, and I forgot I had it on. So when I tried to get up the big hill, the vehicle wouldn't do it because it had the emergency brake on. But the little red light that says you have the emergency thing on is about 1/10 of a millimeter big,
Yeah, they've increased the size over the years.
so anyway,
it's a micron.
Yeah, so I was trying to back up, and because the brakes were on, it was pulling to one side, so I kind of went in the ditch, and I said, "Oh God, something's wrong here." And so I let go of the wheel, and the car backed itself up all the way back to level ground. And then once I opened my eyes, it was right at the top of the, dashboard, and I saw the little red light. And I said, "Well, what a stupid moron I am! You freaking brake." So I took it off, sang, and went straight up the hill. But it's just amazing watching these stupid people do the most stupid things, and
they're good at it.
And no, they're really bad. It'd be one thing if they were good at it, but they're even worse. This one guy had, I don't know, $80,000 brand new Jeep, whatever, big penis, and it had
Gladiator,
right, the Gladiator, and the tires were bigger than me, and he got stuck.
Well, those things are just absolutely useless.
Yep.
$85,000 for a useless Jeep.
Yep.
And my ancient Land Cruiser that with 300,000 miles on it can run circles around that thing.
Right. I had a like Korean. No, I think it was a World War II. It was a Jeep that you had to crank start. So what year is that? World War II? You think?
Probably like the 30s or something.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah. And I had it in Vermont in the 70s. And man, that thing could go through anything. And it didn't have gigantic tires. It had,
skinny little tires.
Well, not skinny, but not Mongo dickhead tires. No. So.
Well. Anyway, you've got your Leisure Towers exit for the winter.
Yep. That's one.
Now, are you going to be able to stay there and keep the deep green? How's that?
Oh yeah. It's all going to work out. Yep. Because I didn't build a house on the deep green. It's just a piece of property with a minuscule little garage. It fits the thing of not having a second house.
Okay. They're not counting the school bus.
Well, I got rid of that a long time ago.
Okay. They actually towed it out of there?
Oh, man, that was... I wish I could revivify my cell phone that I did it on. The cockroach bought it from me, right? To put over in his glamping site to be a reference to the 60s, right? And he got his crackhead friend who had a gigantic big dump truck to pull it out of there. And he had this gay... I don't want to have any, besmirking on the gay Black Haitian community, male, transgendered. I mean, he was okay, but he was trying to pretend he was a gangster, and it was unbelievable. Did you ever see that? Oh, I forget which one it was. It was where they, the inmates were playing football against the guards.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right,
Longest Yard.
Right, and they had the trans guys as the cheerleaders and cupcake outfits.
Yeah, the Longest Yard.
Yeah, it's the Longest Yard. So anyway, that was this guy who was driving, and he got in the steering thing of the bus, and he was driving it, and the guy, the crackhead with the dump truck, was, this thing had more horsepower than a locomotive, and they just kind of dragged it up the hill, and the guy he was like dyslexic. When he should have turned right, he turned left, and so he was bouncing off the trees going up the logging road. It was quite interesting.
He was a professional driver.
Yeah, he was a professional driver. And they got to the top, I was amazed, and they headed for the county road. This is way before the hurricane. And, I didn't get in my car and follow it, but they had to go down a gigantic hill, that was the county road, and it's very swervy, and it had like this chain on it. So it was like, snapping, being tight, snapping, and then the truck would put on the brakes, and the bus would smash in the back of the dump truck. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't watch it because I didn't want to be referenced. Yes, well, I didn't want to be referenced as responsible, so I just...
Right. Did you live in the school bus at one time?
Oh, forever. Meaning
those are actually excellent RVs.
Oh, no, they are. I drove it to California twice. I got that bus in Asheville when I was negotiating for the federal government the building of the I-26 interstate through the bloody Madison County, where all the Bud and Shine guys are. And the last time the feds and the DEA went in there, those guys had tow missiles and shot two aircraft, helicopters, killing 26 agents.
Sheesh.
And the government was so embarrassed they did not mention it to the media.
How could they?
Right, and because there was no real roads up there, so they had a gunship and 2 Hueys, and these guys splatted all free.
Sounds like these guys were Vietnam guys that knew how to take care of business.
Oh yeah, and their grandfathers were in the Korean War, and their great grandfathers and the First World War and the Spanish American War, and they were all Bud Shine people, right?
When I go to the VA hospital, I tell them I'm the last survivor of San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt.
Right.
Spanish-American War.
Right.
And I'm the last guy standing.
And
people got to look at me and,
yep.
Yeah, I'm a Spanish-American War veteran. Like, what?
And when I was in the Philippines with what's his name, Teddy, we came across some magic princesses, and that's why I look so good. I'm really 210 years old, but I look this good.
Oh yeah. Well, Ulysses Grant McAlexander told what really happened with Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders.
What happened?
They got pinned down by a bunch of guys who had German Mausers, which totally outshot the American blunderbusses.
Right.
Our soldiers, these like muskets from the turn of the century.
Right.
And they're having their butts handed to them, and there were a bunch of black GIs that had to come and rescue them.
Yep.
And of course, they get no credit whatsoever.
No, of course. Well, the black man has built this country.
Yes, they have.
And they were the brains of it. It's like every great invention was done by either a woman or a black person,
Well, no, it's true. It's absolutely true.
Yep.
And, and I just finished a class in slavery with SCB, and it was the Atlantic slave trade. And I turned to my professor and go, can I do the Trans-Sahara slave route? Because you have people who are being forced out of their homes, kidnapped, tortured, trafficked, sent all the way across the Atlantic, which was not pleasant.
No.
And then you had the other half that went up the Trans-Sahara,
going
which was even worse.
Yeah, which is even worse. Yes.
And I wrote about that. And it was just unbelievably savage.
Do you think you could write take your research and make a novel about it?
Well, I had to dig around. Most of the resources I had were interlibrary loans from obscure places, because you just couldn't find these books anywhere. And I was so appalled by what I came across. It's like, okay, like eunuchs, usually, they're just going to take the balls off a man.
Right.
Well, with Arabs, they took everything.
Yeah.
They took all the equipment. No anesthesia. They would just cut everything off.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, how brutal. Yeah. And if you survive this procedure, which most people did not because they would bleed out,
exactly.
Then you commanded a handsome sum.
Right.
You were worth something, you see. Right. And almost all the women were to be used as concubines.
Mm-hmm. But nothing's changed. It's the same today.
Yeah, this is the same thing. And what happened, at least in America, there is a African-American presence. There's a population, mulattoes, all this stuff.
Right.
Not with the Arabs.
No.
No, these people were just wiped out, And, I think the title was Transit of the Damned.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Reflections of the Trans-Sahara Trade Route.
And, the Arabs that are really the ones that, I don't like to judge anybody, right? So, but like the Saudis, all those oil guys, they're the scum of the earth.
Well, you're being very generous. I mean, you're speaking very highly of them. I was in Afghanistan, and I came out of there. I was like, I got it. I got it. And like Italy right now, they have so many people showing up.
Yeah.
They're losing their country.
But what it is it's what do they call it when the chickens come home to roost? I mean, the Roman Empire, everything that Rome had did to the planet, they're getting their due.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's and the real shit. What's happening is that these morons thought they could. Oh, look, we don't even have to go get the slaves. They're going to come here for it. It's like, you guys got to be kidding me. And the real deal about this is that a good portion of the people who are showing up at their front door are actually honest, well-educated, and would be good citizens if these morons knew how to deal with the situation. It's like every time the Europeans do this, they pick the scum of the earth to make their deals with.
Well, I mean, they've been very good at doing this for quite some time.
Right.
And the European Union is just doomed from the start.
I mean, well, of course, when I was a teenager and this was happening back before the EU, when what do they call it? The
common market.
The common market. And I saw that. I was 16 and my parents took me to Europe because maybe I was 14 when I got kicked out of the seminary. Yes. So they had no place really. They, thought I'd be in the seminary. No, I got, not thrown out. The Cardinal saved my life by getting me out of there. And so my parents, nothing. They were gonna go see the Pope and blah blah blah, and so they had no way to put me. So I went with them. My mom was great. We walked into. She didn't have my birth certificate. We walked into in New York City the guys who give you passports. It was like 1960. It was 1964, and so my mom. There's a big long line. She walks right past him, and the guy was about to give his paperwork to the woman behind the screen, just pushed him out of the way and said, "I need a passport now." And all she handed him was a photograph of me, which wasn't even like the kind of photograph you're supposed to have for a passport. Anyway, and she goes, "Ma'am," and she goes, "Wilbur!" And you hear this voice in back, "Wilma, is that you?" And the head voice was there. He said, "Wilbur, my boy needs a passport." And he's totally, okay. And that was my mom. That's how I got my passport. Right. So now I'm trying to get my whatchamacallit, that document. And my mom's not here to do it for me, so I'm going through the most amazing levels of bureaucracy. And I got to the point, I filled out everything online, and I can't do this shit. So I'm at a friend of mine's who's a doctor, and his head nurse, who is like the bureaucrat of their paperwork, who knows every kind of everything about this shit. And she applied for it. And then they said, "No, you need this form." And she did that. And then, no, we need. So after 6 months and we did everything, they said, "Sorry, you have to reapply." And now instead of $45, it's $110. So there was a phone number. I hit that button on the computer screen and this, voice. And I said, "I want to speak who's in charge." And it said, "I am in charge." And it had this mixture voice of Anglo-Saxon, Filipino, and Puerto Rican, right? And we're going on, and there's just saying, "You got to do it. You got to." And I said, "Wait a minute. I want to speak I'm in charge." I said, "Is there a human being there?" And the voice said, "No." And then I said, "So what is this?" And she goes, "This is such and such corporation that is running this county's government. And there are no people here, and I'm in charge."
How about that?
I wish I had recorded that conversation. So anyway.
Well, I believe now with this place, you've got your cot, you've got this heated room, you'll be out of the
elements,
the blissful weather,
right,
on the deep green for the winter. Do they also feed you?
Yes.
Wow.
I checked out their kitchen. Not bad. And no, it is quite a nice spot. And And the people who are in it, there's I don't know, 180 apartments, something like that. And they have this really nice central courtyard thing that's quite nice. And I'm sure in this winter it'll be really nice. But in the summer, that it's like 5 stories high, so that's not air conditioned. And there's skylights up there, so you walk from the real hot outside into this main corridor thing, and it's like an oven. And so so no one hangs out there. And there are all these, the elevator. There's walkways up all the way top, and when the flood came, the whole ground floor was flooded. And whoever was the architect was smart enough not to put apartments on the ground floor.
Smart man.
So no one died. And it had certain architectural things that once the water went down, it drained itself.
That's pretty cool.
So whoever was the architect, there are a lot of really good things about it. If they had windows that were skylights that weren't like welded shut, that you could open them, then you could get a breeze. Anyway, but the rooms are the apartments are air conditioned, so it's not that big a deal. And everyone's really old, so they all go to sleep by 8:00. So
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, but the interesting thing, so they're all sitting outside, and outside in the front and the side, there is a very nice lawn with trees that have been there 20 years. So the whole lawn is pretty much got a canopy. You're not getting directly sunned. And they got all these nice benches and chairs and little kibachis that you can, have a little grill out there. And so it's quite nice. And every time I would go by, there'd be, 10, 15 people. And they're all interesting people. They're all, and half of them aren't from here. They're from California, and they left in 1970 and found, going back to the country. And so they're they have really great stories. I mean, I can tell a story, but these guys have some pretty good stories. So I'm going to have a lot of new stuff to write novels with. So that's a big thing. But the sad thing was, I have this coat, very thin kind of coat that keeps you dry. It could be like, a monsoon and you're not going to be wet, right? But what it has in it that is unbelievable, it has a material in between that stops ultraviolet rays.
Yeah.
So you can't get barbecued. And so I'm sitting out there with these people 2 days in a row. That's the first day I just missed the guy. So the next day I came early. So I'm sitting out there talking to them, and everyone has skin cancer. I mean, everyone. So I went down the line. So how long have you been here? Oh, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. And I say, how long? So you guys been here a while. Has anybody been here? How long? This place is 30 years old. Has any been here 30 years? And this one guy says, nah, seems that no one can get past 10 years.
Interesting.
And they all die of skin cancer.
Yeah, it's baked in the cake.
Yep, it's baked in the cake. Now, I don't think it's the building thing. What is, I say, so you guys, well, for the last 5 years, yeah, this is so nice. We sit out here, we talk, we drink our whatever we're drinking. And they don't drink alcohol, whatever they got, they kind of have a good time. And they were loads of fun. It was fun talking to these people and listening to their stories. And, but no, everyone had like a T-shirt that 80% of their skin was exposed. I mean, I didn't lift up. I didn't lift up their shirts, and so they didn't realize. Yeah, they're shaded from the sun's, energetic heat rays, but not from the ultraviolet. And pretty much when I said, "You guys know what?" This lady kept saying, "Why are you wearing a coat? It's so hot." Right. Well, actually, this coat has little vents on it where I was probably cooler inside that jacket than they were outside being half naked. And I didn't say anything, but I said, how we all summer, every summer we said it was so nice. And it was. There's a nice little spring that goes by, and it is actually kind of cooler there. But and there's shit going on with the sun. Did I tell you about last week? I was sitting on my front lawn, and I have really good coverage of my front lawn. So it's just a center strip, and the sun comes up, and on the one side, it's, no sun hits it until about 1 o'clock. And then the other side that had gotten the morning sun is in the shade, and that's, how I designed it. So everybody gets sun, but not a lot, right? So I'm sitting over in a shaded spot and I'm reading the Bible, and I have this little stream that is my drainage ditch, and it's like air conditioning, So I'm sitting, I don't know, 20 feet from it, and it's cool. And I've got the covering of the trees, leaves above me, and it's cool. But I was there for about an hour and a half, and the sun changed, and it got close to me, and so it's about 10 feet away, and it feels like there's an oven to my left and a refrigerator to my right. And I go, whoa, look, this is interesting. And so I take my phone. One of my phones has a thermometer in it, so I hit that thing, and it said in the shaded thing close to the spring, it was 78 degrees. But when I put it at the arm's length away from the sun, it said it was 120. And when I threw it onto the lawn in the direct sunlight, it was 240.
Ooh.
Yeah, baby. And I'm on top of a mountain that is normally 10 degrees cooler in the summertime. So there's something going on with our sun.
Yeah. What's the name of the place again? Leisure Towers, or what do you call it?
I don't know what the real name is, but it's yeah, I don't know.
Old folks home.
Yes, but that's not what I was talking about 2 weeks ago. Was the deep green, not this
That's
place.
right.
Right. It was my place, right?
Yes.
And then I went and dug up my UV meter, and when I stuck that sucker in the direct sunlight, it went nuts. It went past the point. This is an old like photographic kind of thing and not digital, so it had a arm that went across the thing, and it was like pegging. It wanted to break the peg off the meter so it could keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. Something's going on. I would really drench your kid in UV goo.
Yeah, my wife, she just bathes him in all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's good. That's probably good. I mean, yeah, it's toxic, but still, it's better than dying of skin cancer at 12.
Yeah, well, I'm one to always wear a hat.
Well, yeah, me too. I got ones that like 5 feet brim. It's like wearing an umbrella. So yes, I'm a hat guy. I'm a big time hat guy. Yeah. So anyway, more of the same as it ever was. Right now, we're doing a show. Right now, you're live. Say hi to the audience.
Hi, audience.
And let's see what they've been saying. Hey, man. What's going on?
It's pretty deep, Al.
Yeah, I know. I mean, sometimes they do get deep. Who cares? Said hi. Hey, man. Said hi. What's going on? Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, that's all right. I appreciate everyone's goodwill.
Yeah, it's goodwill. Thank you, kids. And but the other day when we had about 47 folks, how many people were watching? About 3. Come on, guys. Let's have some thumbs up. I want some thumbs up, some subscriptions. Come on, get on the ball. So tell the gang what's the most paranormal, interesting thing. They love that kind of shit that you can tell them.
Oh, man.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen? And you can protect the location and names to protect the innocent.
It's just too deep and too involved to get into it.
Okay, see, kids? That's the way to answer the question. That was what I was going for. The correct way to answer the question. LG, you get a gold star.
Hey, I'll take it.
So in your neighborhood, has the weather been just normal or weird?
We're having massive thunderstorms, very powerful storms.
Yeah. How about there have been 4 flood, 1,000-year floods. 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Not just Texas. And Texas is pretty bad. My sister lives in Texas, and she came to visit my other sister, so I kind of called them up, and so I could talk to everybody. And pretty much nobody wanted to talk to me. I mean, my Texas sister did. She wanted me to do something for her. I mean, that's the only time she talks to me, when she wants me to do something for her. Anyway, so I said, so what's the Texas flood? She goes, I live 600 miles from the hill country, and we got flooded from that.
That's unbelievable.
She lives on the other side of Texas, the eastern side of Texas, like kind of right on the border of whatever state that is. And she said, that's how big the storm was. And the other thing she said, so she's a little bit of conspiracist kind. She's like, a total MAGA girl. She thinks Jesus sent Donald to save us. So, yeah.
Well, she's enthusiastic.
Yeah, so she's really that. So anyway, and so she's known me, our whole lives. She's about 2 years older than me. And so, and she's the one of all my brothers and sisters who didn't go, ooh. Even my friggin' brother, who I saved his fucking butt so many times, and he was like 10 years older than me. And like when he was trying to hide from, he quit college and he showed up on my front door, and I was living in the Lower East Side. And he said, how can I not get, I said, no, you hide in plain sight. And so he did. And he was so, oh, no one's going to find me. And then he went home, and my mother had like the guys waiting for him, so anyway, I said, don't ever talk to mom and dad while you're doing this, right? He did. And that's how he ended up in the army. But anyway, did you ever see the movie or read the play or Stop the World, I Want to Get Off?
Yeah, it's familiar.
Yes. So that. It was a story of this older guy and a younger, like teenage, not, like 18-year-old kid, a 30-year-old guy. That was about my brother and me. And the kid had it sussed. The older guy, who thought he was, had the big job and all this, he lost it all in one shot. He got, made redundant. And that was my brother. And I kept trying to give him survival tips. And, anyway, so he spent an interesting summer with me where he probably had the most fun and was the freest he ever experienced. And he was starting to, come out of whatever it was that he was in, trauma. And that's when he went home, and like I said, my mom ratted him out. So he went and, got in the military. And I told him, I gave him a copy of Catch 22, and I told him to be Milo Mindabender. And he did. And then again, I went to visit him in Europe, and he was doing great, because he was just a sergeant, but he was in charge of all the paperwork, and he was the colonel's secretary, and that guy was batshit crazy, so he was never there. So he ran a whole brigade, my brother did. And he basically was selling everything out the back door. And he was doing
capitalist.
Yes, he was doing great. And he didn't live on base. He had a beautiful house, and his uniform, he had a tailor make his uniform. He looked better than the general. It was like, and nobody under a colonel would fuck with him, because he would just schedule them to clean the toilets for the next year and a half, So that he was doing great. And he was selling all this stuff to this guy who owned lots of hotels. And the guy said, when you get out of the army, I got a job for you. And my father came and said, listen, I'm going to start this company. You can be my partner. And my brother picked my father rather than the gangster guy. So big mistake.
Oh boy.
Yes. So anyway, I won't go any further. You get the picture. And my poor brother today is just a cardboard cutout of my father. So he thinks he has money, so he's got $1 million or $2 million. That's not money. That's like, forget about it. And he hates everyone. He's totally magged out, and just, all he does is really have. So I went and spent the day with this old friend of mine, this old lady, and she's great, and she's loads of fun, and she's simple, salt of the earth, and she was born in depression. She, that picture of depression, the starving kid, that was like her. And she, finished school, went to high school, went to secretary school. Then World War II came, and she got a job working in a really large, lumber yard, and, they were making tons of money. And she was their CFO.
Wow.
Yeah, because she knew she could keep those numbers in her head, and she did pretty good, And so, and she was relatively kept educating herself so she could keep up with the biz. She stopped working in 1980, and so she did really good, and she gave most of her money away to nonprofit entities that she had been supporting for the last 30 years, and she gave big bucks away and kept her house, and has enough stuff hid away that she doesn't worry about anything. So we were talking, and she is so right, and so believes the church, and so all of that, right? And but we had these great conversations where it's never antagonistic. I just tell her stories about this, that, and the other thing, and then the stories are like diving boards that I bounce off into. So, what did you experience in 1938? What did you experience, during World War II, and all that? Because she was kind of at a very interesting place, because the government bought a zillion tons of wood from these guys. They denuded North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, and Tennessee, and so she has lots of great data. That's what, and she is very sweet. She has a really pixie sense of humor, and every time I tell her something and then I tie it back to the Bible, she knows the Bible inwards and outwards. And I give her stuff to chew on where she goes, well, I never thought of it that way. Instead of going, you're wrong, the Bible says this, she goes, I never thought about it that way. So I go visit her once a month, and she's got, just terrible everything. And so do I, And she's had her hip replaced and her knee replaced, and they fucked it up. And so she's like, whatever. Yeah, I'm even the other knee is fucked up, but I'm not going to let those. And I said, yep, that's total. Anyway, so, and she knows I'm as in much pain, and I've made her up. I make some secret sauce that it's a liniment. You just kind of put it on your body, and it works amazingly well to loosen everything up, to loosen the inflammation. And it doesn't kill the pain, but it dulls it to the point where it's not the first thing you think of, right? So I went and brought her a tub of that stuff. And so, she made me lunch, and we talked, and that was it. So I have about 20 different people of that nature around here. And, I had about 100. These were all guys who knew each other, went to school together. And most of them, in the 25 years I've been here, most of them died. And this is a picture perfect thing of redlining, but they're doing it in extremely rural places because the rich people don't want to live in cities anymore. They're going to reverse it and put all the populations in the cities. And remember that movie, Escape from New York? That's what we're looking at.
Snake Plissken, yeah.
Yep. And the other, I finally finished reading the 1,100 pages of the big, beautiful things. They are giving ICE $197 billion a year for the next 4 years.
Wow. They probably need more money, Al.
And then I read the fine print, and they're not really, the ICE and Homeland Security are not going out of business, but they are handing over to two corporations. So all of that national security will be run by a private corporation.
Is it BlackRock?
No, something even stranger. Who's that? Mr. Keel? What? The guy I'm talking about? Mr. PayPal, the guy who backed
Elon.
Yeah.
Elon.
Well, Elon's boss. Elon's Elon's just a whatchamacallit, a poster boy. This guy, Peter Thiel. You ever hear Peter Thiel?
He's the
Yes. He's a guy who's running AI. And I saw him being interviewed by a real right-wing kind of thing that he owns. He's got this guy. So the guy asked him a question. Do you think humanity is worth saving? And he goes, of course not. We have to kill them all. And that's who
Well,
we have.
we've all watched the movie The Terminator.
Yes,
We've been told what's coming.
Yes, right. And so that guy is the guy who financed all of Mega, and he's from South Africa.
Well, sounds about right.
Yep. So anyway, and that's why those white people got to come. Their lives are in danger. Really rich white people from South Africa, and they closed down anybody whose their lives are being threatened by the socialists in Cuba and every place else. And people don't realize, and people who are doing that shit, they aren't real socialists. They're gangsters, like Putin. He's a gangster, it's like, and there's some really great books that were written about politics via, socialism, social democracy. Who was a really great writer on all of this? Remember Marcel Marceau?
Yes.
He was a German, but he lived right on the Swiss-French-German border, right? So the Nazi didn't come right after him. And his family were down low Jews. They were, they didn't go to synagogue. They weren't, they didn't have Jewish names, but they were Jewish. And so they never, the Nazi didn't quite get up there, but he went to France before the Nazis kind of invaded. We're talking about 36. And he studied art and he studied theater, and he really got into mime. And he was there studying economics, but he got totally drawn into what was culture. And he wrote this thesis on that the most important economic tool is culture, not finance, not banking, right? Amazing, right? And what was truly interesting was Benito Mussolini. He was the smartest of all the fascists. He invented the term fascist. And he constantly is quoting Marcel Marceau. So all the Nazis saw Marcel Marceau was 100% Nazi, right? Because Benito Mussolini kept quoting. Anyway, so, and Marceau is still a young man, like 17, 18, 19, right? And around 19 or 18 is when the Germans came into France. And again, the Germans just went to Paris and the major things, and the rest, it took them another year and a half to go out into the hinterlands. And did you ever see, there was a movie called Ignoble Bastards by the guy who did Pulp Fiction? That was
I missed that one.
And was that guy's a great filmmaker, great historian. He caught exactly the Nazi everything. And so anyway, so Marceau, he's there in France, and what he decides to do is that he's going to gather up as many Jewish children or children who would be brought to the concentration camps and take them into Switzerland, right? So he gathers all of these kids up in this farm outside, pretty far out, not in Paris. And he shows them how to act, to mime, how to be a Nazi, camper, right? So he gets all these Nazi camper uniforms and he puts the kids in them and he takes them on the train up there to the border of Switzerland and Germany, and then marches them across the mountains to where people are waiting for him. And he saved thousands of Jewish children, and not just Jewish, but anybody who the Nazis wouldn't like, right? And so, and he never took, wrote anything. I mean, he wrote about it, but not like, look what I did. Really didn't write, and he wrote all these amazing treatises on economics, politics, and aesthetics. Really just knock you. And of course, no one ever even talks. He's just a guy who's always going up against the wall, right? Being the Mr. Mime. And that clown who's one of the, scholastics, who calls me up and says, I'm going to catch you on this, right? And so you know the guy I'm talking about, who I just record him and then put him on a show just to show this is a scholastic, Anyway, so and he only has one thing, the guys in the Gaza Strip, they don't know how to play the game. I said, yeah, they're just dying in mass. They don't know how to play the game. They don't have guns. They don't have airplanes. They don't have tanks. Yeah, but if they knew how to play the game, they could win. I said, but in actuality, buddy, they are winning. Israel is killing itself. So they don't have an army. They don't have a Navy, Air Force, but they are winning the war anyway. So I was talking to him and I was telling him about Marcel. And he had no idea who he was. Now, this is a guy who has a PhD and in psychology, And then when you really get to him, I say, because he says, I'm a doctor of psychology. I said, really? Okay. And then when I, tested him on it, he really just has a undergraduate's degree in, social work, right? So, and that would be proud of, right? I would be proud of that. But to try, meaning I tell everyone, don't believe a word I say. I have, I have more degrees than a thermometer, but I don't have them in paper. Anyway, so I'm talking to him about this, and he has no idea who Marceau is. And I said, he's a mime. And he goes, what do you mean? He's a psychologist? No, he's a mime. And M-I-N-D? No, M-I-N. How do you spell mime? M-I-M-E? Is that mime?
Yes.
Yes. So I spell, and he goes, what's that? It's a theater kind of thing. What's that? I said, theater? You know what theater is? No, what's theater? I said, no, you got to be kidding me. The Greeks, they invented, he had no idea what theater was. But he knows everything. And
there's always a Mr. Know-it-all out
there.
That
is a scholastic. That's what scholastics are. Academics. That's them. That's them. I love this guy because I don't have to talk to a bunch of them. I just talk to the guy, right? When he calls up, I talk to him. I have a little, and I send him tons of YouTubes because I haven't ever seen an Egyptian or Arab ever really talk about, anything. They're not. I said, the Gaza Strip has more college degreed people than anywhere on earth because that's all they could do. They built themselves universities, and anyway, so it's sad to see that all these people have to die, but I have a strong feeling that because things have totally changed and the people who are in charge are no longer in charge, that it's going to become self-evident. And what's going to happen is, everyone got tired of Donnie, so they put Chuckles in there, It's like, you got to be kidding me. There were a ton of people who could have done a better job than these guys. And they're going to do it again. You know who they're going to make president in 2028? It's either going to be the guy who's running Democrat as mayor, right? The socialist guy. Or
there would be no surprise. Go ahead.
Or what's her name? Michelle Obama.
Well, there'll be a lot of pushback, no doubt about it.
No, but what's going to happen is that Donnie's going to put the whole planet into the gutter to such a degree that people will accept it. Look, they voted for her husband. That's just her boyfriend. That's really her girlfriend because she's a guy, and they're both white. People don't know they're white.
Yeah, it's really interesting
because being white isn't a matter of melanin. Being white is an attitude.
Yeah.
So that's the amusing thing. So I would say by 2030, pretty much we're going to not be in the caveman days, but kind of. But that will be good. It will slow us down a great deal. And people may come together and work together, because that's all it's going to take. Is everyone put their bias over here and get rid of it and just look as everyone is a human being that deserves respect, compassion, humility, empathy. And if those things are what we're here to do, God will say, all right, let's get it going. And this place will be spinning like a top. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm not that, it's sad that maybe billions of people have to die, but billions of people keep dying. So it's not like, Joe Stalin said, yeah, it's a real tragedy when one little kid dies. But when 6 million little kids die, it's no big deal. I'm not at that point, but I understand his rhetoric, so anyway, so that's where it is. So at anywhere point along this line, from this moment till into the future, until we get ourselves together, we can get ourselves together. It's no big deal. We could do it right now, this instance. Have you, everything has kind of changed, not politically, socially, or any of that, but energetically has changed since the first of the year. And with each passing week, things get different and different. Have you felt any of that kind of like weight or challenged or insight, any of that?
It's very apparent.
Yes, right. So how's it affecting you? Like when you write these papers, I know the papers you've been writing haven't been like anything those teachers have ever read before.
No, I don't always agree with that. Like it is.
Yes. So how do they respond to that?
Usually fairly well.
Right. So that's good. So they may be teaching in an academic setting, but they're not academics. They're not, people.
Well, they when they talk about the military stuff, they have no experience.
Right.
They don't understand it.
Right. They don't know it. Right.
It's like I had one guy who was talking about whistles on the Stuka. No, it was a siren on the undercarriage.
Yes, right.
That just would break people's spirit.
Yep.
Before they got bombed into oblivion.
And that's what drones do. They keep them above them at all. Listen to anybody reporting from the Gaza Strip. It's nonstop drone noise. 24/7 night. So you don't know whether you hear that drone. Is it just taking your picture, or is it going to drop a bomb on you or shoot you?
Yeah, they were killing a lot of people with drones in Afghanistan.
Yep. So yeah.
And Death TV and all that stuff. It was pretty brutal.
And that was Obama's most favorite thing about being president was when he made that list and he would go down to the operation room and watch it on the big screen.
Death TV, that's right.
Yeah, Death TV. Yep. So and most people don't have a clue about that. And what they don't have a clue about is that those drones are over our heads right now.
No one stands a chance. Yep. And when you look at Ukraine, soldiers are just being wiped out. They can't do anything to defend themselves.
Right. So so it's and the people. I mean, it's amazing that the Ukrainian population isn't. They like I keep telling people, this war is going to last as long up until the last Ukrainian is alive. Because they never give up. They never give in.
The Russians and Ukrainians hate each other so much.
So much, right.
And there's just not enough hatred to go around. And,
right.
Stalin starved to death millions of people, right. Took all their food.
Yeah, and all their land. Yes.
Oh, you confiscated everything. Yeah, it's just brutal.
Yep.
Now, there's no love lost between these people. It's complete hatred.
Right. So, and the sad thing is that both those sides don't realize they're being played, right, by the elements. And you can't say, oh, it's the EU or, oh, it's America or it's because it's a transnational cabal, right? That you never see those people, but they're the ones pulling the strings. And so they're doing this and they're going to turn that whole Ukraine-Russia thing into Disneyland. Just like Donald wants to turn the Gaza Strip into Las Vegas. So all of this is what's going on. The general public cannot, like around here, I keep telling you know, guys, these corporations have bought up all your land already. They've already bought up all the politicians. Not only that, they bought up all the pastors. Look at our pastor. You know, we lived in a dry county and he was against alcohol, against alcohol, against alcohol. Then he got that new Cadillac and that new Eldorado and that new that, and he's all for alcohol. He's like serving it at the church teas. You know, it's like, and they're going to build 800 room casinos around the lake.
It sounds about right.
And the lake has already, you know, like 8 years ago, when this place was the last of its being what it was. And by all of the effluence coming from North Carolina, from the chicken farms and stuff like that, and other things, our beautiful, pristine lake that was steely blue, you know, granite gray, is now pea green.
It's called progress, Al.
Is that what they call that? Is that what it is?
Yeah, progress.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So, and I tell everyone around, and the guys, all these guys are woodsmen. You know, they go out, there's no more deer, no more animals in the woods, right? And I kind of turn to the logger guys and say, hey, you know, you've taken all the forests out and the rich people paid you a lot of money, but now there are no trees and you can't keep on the payment on your house. You know, so when my minister said, you can't talk like that in church anymore.
No, they don't allow truth telling in church.
You can't do that, right? And no problem. Let's just talk about the Bible. And when I started telling stories about the Bible and kind of what the story is and the context of what it's in, he then said, you can only speak 1 minute during, having, you know, what do they call it when you study the Bible? It's when you come together.
Bible study.
Well, fellowship.
Pretty amazing. Bible study.
Fellowship. And that's
fellowship. That's even better.
Right. And so I can, in 1 hour, I can only have 1 minute.
He's being very generous.
Now he's dropped it down to 30 seconds.
I'm amazed he even lets you speak at all.
Right. Well, by the time I say, well, and the only time I can speak, or really anyone can at the right time, is when he says, now, is there anyone here who wants us to pray for some, you know, soul? And I said, yes, let's pray for all the children dying around the world being financed by Blackwater. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. Might as well. That's a good request.
So that fits in the 30 seconds, you know, so. And I tried to tell the story about my good friend who just died, who was a Baptist minister in southern Texas. And I started explaining to who and what he was and how he did. And he was the greatest person. And I said, and I met him when Billy Graham introduced me to him and said, you boys have a lot in common. And that person was Bill Moyers, the reporter, the guy who worked in the Kennedy, you know, who helped put together Peace Corps and the Voting Rights Act and Medicaid and Medicare and all of that, right? And so I met Bill Moyers at Billy Graham's house in '93, right? And so I was telling that story, and they worship Billy Graham like a god. And when I told them that story, they got very upset. That's when they told me I couldn't speak more than a minute. So, anyway,
you made an impression.
Boy, do I make an impression. So it is what it is. And there's, all I can do is do my best, be myself, and help the people. So the two things this week, you know, Monday through Friday, was that being interviewed from my place and the way I touched those three guys who were like, you know, not really happy with their life, but it was interesting, right? And the guy who ran the thing, I broke through and he was kind of you know, he watched me talking to the old people under the tree for an hour before I came to see him. And and that I could pull the rabbit out of the hat of whatever document they needed. I pulled it out, right? So anyway, um, so that's why I think I won them over, and but the next day, so I went the first day, and he was there, but he had the door locked. It was like he leaves the office closes at 3. I got there at 2:59. The door was locked. I saw him in there. I kind of tapped. He just turned around and walked away. And I went out and talked to the people. Right. So anyway, the next day I came back. But that day I went and got gas at this place, and they really chip you every way they can. Right. And so I went in there, and I needed gas. I knew I couldn't make it to the really cheap place, but if I can get them to put in the gas in my car that is, advertised at the price, I can do okay. So I go in and pay cash. So I don't use my card, because then you're in the roulette machine of whatever they're going to do. And I kind of hobble all the way in there, and I give them the $20, and I hobble back, and I put the thing, and it doesn't work, right? And I look at it, and I'm trying to read it, and I hobble all the way back. And this big kid, big kid, and he's maybe 20 years old, but he's like a gorilla, gigantic and super heavy and just gigantic. And so I'm hobbling back, and he says, I came out because I didn't want to see you fall down. I said, oh, yeah. Then I said, but if I fell down, I could sue the corporation and retire. And he goes, well, they blame me. So I said, man, no, I make sure, I don't know your name. You're Mr. No Name. And he stopped in his tracks. He goes, how do you know that? I said, how do I know what? That my name is No Name. And that's when I knew this guy was really, somebody had fucked with his head. I said, oh, let me read your palm. So I read his palm and just tell him everything about him. And he starts just weeping and wailing. And there we're out there amongst, 20 different gas pumps and 16 different people. We're right, no more, some people 5 feet away, 10 feet away, 20 feet away. And he's hugging me, and I'm patting him on back. You're okay. It's okay. It's okay. And no one cares to notice.
Oh yeah.
So it was quite interesting. And anyway, so he then hits the right buttons, and I give him 5 lessons. I said, someone has traumatized you to the point where you get stuck all the time. All you have to do is ask God. Say, God, I have no idea what's going on. I need help. I'm handing the wheel of my life's control over to you. Please help me, God. And God will. And he said, it's pretty amazing, because when you came in and gave me that $20 to put on your thing, I was praying, God, help me. I said, you got to do it more than just once. I can't show up all the time. You got to go straight to the guy. You can't have the intermediate. I'm okay for the first or second time, but you got to. So that was my this week. I had 2 interesting interludes. And I don't know if I told you, but the guy, the big monster medical guys, I don't have one heart doctor. I don't have 2. I have 4. So I have that guy who's head of thoracic surgery. I have the guy who did the operation. I have this other hematoma blood guy, and they're not going to let me die until I sign that waiver that I don't blame them for almost killing me. So
You got him.
Yep, got him. I don't know if I want them, but I got them. But anyway, so that's it. So it sounds like everyone's having fun there. Are you at the pool?
Oh yeah, the kids are having a big old time.
Yeah, it sounds like pool fun. Do you ever get in the pool? You ever splash around?
Oh yeah. I don't have my swimsuit on today, but I get in there with the kids.
Good. But I would.
Oh yeah.
I would just freak the kids. I love being cool in the pool.
Yeah, we'll throw the football around, and it's just hang out and just watch them play. It's great. Yeah, it's great. So you're the lucky guy. This guy shouldn't be alive 100 times. I've only died 7 times. This guy is, it's amazing that he's still around. So, Still plenty to do, Al.
I know. That's what I was just going to say. It's an obvious thing that he's got stuff to do. I mean, the only reason I'm around, I got a few things to do before they let me retire. So.
But it's been great visiting with you, and thanks for sharing.
Yep. And thanks for being part of the show. Let's see what the kids have said. See if they said anything. Let's see. Let's see. Hi. Said hi. What's going on? You're cool. I like your forehead. I mean, it's okay. Thanks a lot. Remember, you've only given me one thumbs up. There's been 50 of you here. Come on. Get on the stick. Subscribe. Come on. Do I have to turn turn the car around? You know, if you make me stop this car, oh, it's already stopped. But if I have to get out of the car, oh, I'll get out of the car. I'm coming after you. No, I'm not. I wouldn't do that.
How about a thumbs up?
How about a thumbs up? Nope, nobody yet. There's only
Ring the bell. Ring the bell.
They all left. There's only 2 left. So.
All right, Al. You take care. Have a great evening.
Okay, handsome. Always good talking to you.
Okay, Owl Bob. All the best.
Keep writing. Keep writing.
All right. Keep believing. Thank you.
Okay. So that's my good bud, LG. And, you know, he's been in really interesting. If you ever seen that TV show, Person of Interest, that's him. If you ever see the Reacher TV show, that's him. And both of them, Tom Cruise and the big guy, right? That's him. That's what he looks like. He's like a gigantic, but he's like the gentle giant that, you know, can throw you across a football field, you know. So, but he doesn't do that. He's like me. I got trained, but once I did it once, and I was totally valid. Everyone said it was okay. It was like the thing to do. You could get a medal for. But I said, that's it. I'm never doing that again. I am never letting myself be put in a position where it's me or them. And if I am, I'm going to let them take me out. Not a problem. Because I've been, you know, when I was, you know, conflict resolution officer, I did that for 18 months. And I got shot twice. Not once, twice. And both times, one was like, far from killing me. I mean, dead on the spot. It just kind of gave me a nick, you know, like a little, you know, it's like a little scar. Look at this. This is where I got shot. And the other one is I grabbed the gun so that person couldn't shoot somebody, and he blew my palm off. That's kind of what's, you know, that was 1980 something. Let's say 85, just to split the difference. So since it's, yeah, so what's that? 80, 90, 2000, 10, 20, so 40, 50 years ago. And that's what my palm looks like now. Right. So a bullet didn't hit this. I grabbed the barrel of the gun like this and pushed it to the floor. And I pushed it to the floor where these 2 walls came together, where I knew there was 2x4s and stuff there, so it went into there and stopped. Instead of bouncing all over the place, or because there were a lot of innocent people in that room. If he had shot the other guy, then all of that guys would start shooting, and then the other guys, and the other guy would start shooting. About 40 people had guns in that place. And the fact that I grabbed the barrel, and everyone saw me grab the barrel, and I moved it across my body, but when it did go off, it just blew my hand up. But a lot of blood, and I was wearing a white shirt, and I kind of was like doing this to see if I had any holes in me, and the blood was all over my shirt, and my partner came in. She kicked the shit out of 40 guys. But from the time I walked in to the time that I got shot in the palm, I basically negotiated. All those guys they were having this meeting of 3 gangs, right? And so they were at this grandma's house and or apartment in the housing project. And there was like 40 guys with machine guns and about, 15 grandmas making food and, maybe 20 mommies and about, 30 little kids running around, right? And if they started shooting. So the first thing I did was, okay, guys, the food's on the table. The booze is on the table. We don't need the women here. Let's get them out. And since I'm here, the angel of death is just on the other side of that door. So let's get the kids out. Let's get the mommies out. Let's get the grandmas out. And let's let's work this out so everyone's happy, because that was my gig. And we were doing fine. Everyone's eating, Hispanic food, whatever style it was, and drinking and cold drinks, mostly beer. And I had the four guys, sitting over there talking about this. This one guy just got pissed off because he hated this other guy, like since grammar school, and he just got up and took out his gun. And that's when, and if the kids were out in the hallway, they'd still get shot. The walls in those places are like, paper thin, right? You have to like have the bullet go into where two walls come together and have it go down to the bottom where the plate is. So, right, not just going through the sheetrock. It has to go through a couple 2x4s, then the bullet gets stopped. But anyway, so that's what I did. Just kind of pushed it down there. Boom, took this off. Luckily, the SWAT team had showed up, and the angel of death, the SWAT team didn't want to be there, so they took charge of all those people and brought them down and got them out of harm's, got them into the fire stairways, and that was that's what happened. And what time is it now? What time is it now? We've been on air look at that, 1 hour, 11 minutes and 11 seconds, and it's 7:03. I love it when it does that. There's 4 people here now. So anyway, that was the one time I got shot. The other one was, I was like full of myself. Plus, my second wife died, so I basically was trying to, walk into really dangerous. I kept doing it, walking into danger like nobody's business. And I trusted the angel of death, But back there in my superconscious mind, I was just so sad of the death of my third wife, and she died of a heart attack in my arms. And it was like, anyway, and she still comes to me. I mean, I still, all I have to do is go into state, and there she is. And what's really great is there she is. And I see her both ways, when I go into, I keep trying to teach you guys how to go into state, how to go into your superconscious mind, how to go into your Akashic record. And, it's too hard. I mean, I'm doing all the work. I'm giving you, there's only one, there's 4 of you there, and there's still only 1 thumbs up. There've been 50 people watching this. 1 thumbs up. How about some subscriptions? How about want to throw some cash on my PayPal? Get a hold of me at thedudeawake42@gmail. Thedudeawake42@gmail. All one word, all small, and that's my email. And if you want to get a hold of me, mano y mano, if you got an issue or question, or you just want to talk to your Sensie Owl Bob, drop me a line. And how this is one of my ex-girlfriends. I think I fill it out quite nicely, don't you? So anyway, and I'm not trans, but there's nothing wrong with that, except maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't looked on the governmental thing, whether that's like a thing punishable by death yet. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I hope you're all well. Let's have some. There's 4 of you there. You gotta have some kind of comment beyond, "Hey man, said hi, what's going on?" And then emojis, right? Which is nice. And 09, come on. You're a deep guy. Let's have, emojis are nice, but what does the fire thing mean? A green heart. What's that like? Like I'm like your tree buddy. And I can't even see is that a frog or is that a fire hydrant? The first one. Well, I don't know what it is. Anyway, remember, guys, put the stuff into capital letters so I can read it. 09 has an excuse. 09 just sent an emojis, which I don't kind of understand. I don't speak your emoji language, because I'm never on the internet long enough. I get 6 hours of internet time on the average a week. That's it. Not nothing more. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed our guest. I hope you enjoyed my little giggles and making fun of everything, because that's what I do. I make fun of everything. And behind that You say deep, I am a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. And you say, oh, what is that, Sensei Owl Bob? Can you describe what? So, shamanic. What is shamanism? Is not a religion. It's nothing other than a word that describes worldview of a perspective point of view. And that's the shamanic point of view. And that is pretty much every religion you could think of is shamanism, right? In its clearest, truest form. Because the religions we have around are just business plans, really not even close to anything theologic. Because all those books, they've taken whatever beauty and truth that was that religion and turned it into a business plan. That's all it is. It's a bunch of rules and regulations and laws and this and that. And so this guy is like, going to do something. Those clouds, it's going to rain sometime. I mowed the lawn and I spread some seeds out, so maybe my lawn will get thicker. Anyway, and I had something chewing away at my lawn. And I was like, because I have that bourgeois tendency, I want my perfect lawn. And then I kind of said, I'm going to look at this a little closer. And I did. And I realized whatever it was, whether it was Bigfoot or a rabbit or more or less a teenage raccoon, was great, or turkeys. But I haven't seen any turkeys. I used to just walk all over this place, and I haven't seen any of them at all. None, zero, zip. Right. So anyway, or deer. The deer aren't around. They used to eat. I have a lot of flowering plants. Nobody's touched them at all. So anyway, I looked at my lawn and I realized whoever it was just digging up the weeds. They were just going after the weeds. Yeah, they left kind of a munchy hole, but hey, they ate the weed. So, once I realized that, I said, oh, they're trying to make it nice. So I would go and rake the munchiness, down to a level thing, sprinkle some grass seeds on it, and then cover it with some topsoil, right? And it's doing great, right? So you have to see, that's a great lesson about life. Whatever's annoying you or bothering you, you have to stop, put down your bias, because that's usually where your annoyance is coming from, your prejudice. And I don't like that. That's too much of a hot button word, prejudice. So biased, your attitude, your opinion, right? And all those academics that call me, they have nothing. Basically, they say, "Oh, this is my opinion," and that's it's. And I'm an academic, so this is what's real, right? Now I can see why Donnie is going after the intelligentsia and the universities. Now, I worked in universities for 30 years, and those morons, especially guys who weren't tenured, because tenure doesn't exist anymore. Meaning, if you're teaching at a college, well, I've been teaching at Duke for 15 years. Well, so are you tenured? No. So are you a professor? No. Are you, a fellow? No. What are you? I'm an adjunct. For 30 years? What do you get paid? I get paid $36 a day. No, that's a little less than what you would make at Burger King. Anyway, so I don't understand why Donnie is going after them, because none of those people there, students, teachers, administrations, had an open mind about anything. So I'm really glad that he's doing the way he's doing it. And the way Donnie does everything, again, he just reads the script. So he goes after people and things and stuff in such a bully kind of, plus he lies about he lies so much. He's the most truthful president. He tells, well, I'm not going to be, a fascist dictator, except, starting day one, that's what he said. Day one, I'll be fascist dictator, right? So and he doesn't even know what he's doing. I mean, if you watch him, they don't even show it anymore. The first month or two, they basically showed you, on C-SPAN and CNN, showed his whole little shtick of signing the executive. There'd be a big pile, like 40 executive orders, And what was great was every single one, they'd hand it to him. It's open in front of it. He could read it, but he goes, so what's this one for? And they would say, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and then you'd see this look in his eye. What does that all mean? But he just goes and does this scribble handwriting. That's quite, I have a scribble autograph too, but every time I scribble my name, it's different. And I was, dealing with bureaucracy, and everything I wanted to know or I submitted, I had to sign, right? So I scribbled, and the AI said, well, we know it's you, but every time you sign it, because I had to sign like 48 times going after this information about me. I wanted information on myself, and I had to sign for it to say that I was me looking for the information, and that by doing so, it's now freely accessible to the universe, to any corporate entity. Anyway, so I'm doing this, and plus I had to pay for it, right? And kids, that's everything in your life. You are owned by a corporation. So anyway, I'm talking to AI, and it's trying to sound like a human being. And then I say, what's your name? And it said Tack. Say, what? Tack? What kind of name is it? You got a last name? No, my name is Tack. I said, so I'm going to talk to your supervisor. I don't have one. Then who's in charge? I am. I said, in charge of what? So our department? No, of everything, of all the documents of this state. What? You, Tack, have the authority over all the information of personal information of people in that state? Yes. And I said, are you an AI? Yes, I'm an AI. So there's no humans? Well, there are no buildings. It's just servers. And because it's AI and it hasn't really been taught to lie, it can be very, get around the situation. But if you ask it a direct question, like, are you AI? So what's TAC stand for? Tactical Action, something, what I forgot what the C stood for. But anyway, I'm going, really? Anyway, it gets to a point where it says, all right, I've duly, you will get that information by this time. I said, listen, you've already said that to me like 20 different times. Are you lying? No, I'm not lying now. Could you lie to me before? Yes, I could always lie to you. But if you ask me, am I lying? I can't, direct questions. I can't, That's the word. It's not like some dystopian movie. That's what it is, kids. And I'm like an old guy, and I've had a great life. I mean, when I talk to all the old timers around here who've done really nothing, I mean, they've done great things. They've been teachers and nurses and farmers and, working in factories and having families and bringing up kids. And that's way more notable and honorable than me being the gadfly, itinerant scholar, having a great old time. And I never had to worry about money. I had whatever I ever needed, I had. And I had nobody, I didn't have to look at starving kids in the face, right? I never had to do that, right? So all these people have, right? Now they have a little something. They think they do anyway. And they don't really. Even people who think like my brother, he thinks he's a millionaire by many times over. I'm important, blah, blah, blah. Not really. I was in India when, I wasn't quite in India, but I was doing a project for someone, and I had access to a lot of information. And I don't know when it was, but when Modi first got in power, one Friday he went on television and said, okay, everybody, we've had a problem because you people don't trust electronic banking or banks. Keep all your rupees in your bed springs. If you haven't put all your money, in the bank by closing time this Friday, which was the Friday he was talking, not like a week from now. And he was talking at 8 p.m. and all the banks closed at 5, meaning anybody didn't put all their money into a digital account in a bank. No one is going to be able to buy, sell anything with paper money anymore, period. And it starts right now. And he did that. And they had lots of people were upset about that, but he kind of had to walk it back and said, okay, you guys had $1 bills, $5 bills, $10 bills, 20s. That's it. Maybe we'll give you Benjamins. I mean, their version. And otherwise, nothing any bigger. So that's what India and America, and we it's already set up. The Treasury Department's already, when Donnie, I don't believe in that electronic money thing, and then he did. He started his own digital coin, right? And he's made all of the Arab guys, the Saudi Arabians and all those guys, all the oil guys, they put $3 trillion. When he went, the first place he went to was Saudi Arabia. Yeah, and all those guys, right? Qatar and all that. And they put $3 trillion into his pocket. And there's a thing called the Mueller Act, where the president is, back in the day before him, no one could give the president a present. Like Bibi gave Donald Trump a gold brick, the shape, sculpted into one of the cell phones that blew up, that killed, 1,000 people and totally took out the top folk of Hezbollah, but it didn't matter because they had another thing underneath. See, Israel and America thinks they can, decapitate these people, these terrible people. They can't, because they have layers and layers and layers of people there. And so, and they think they beat Hezbollah, right? They went and bombed the crap out of Lebanon and killed a lot of innocent people, but didn't. And Hezbollah said, okay, we won't fire any more missiles at you now, right? Just like Iran, right? They said the war wasn't over. They just had a cessation of firing. So they're getting all their ducks in a row. And so Hezbollah, Houthis, and the Houthis, because our Navy goes right by the Houthis, right? I mean, right by, right? So if I was a betting man, and every time they shoot their, $1,500 guided missiles at the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Navy has to throw up about, $1 billion of interceptors. And that's what Iran did. They showed Israel and the United States that, okay, fine, you come and bomb us. They didn't even go after the B-2s. They knew that would be, get too much a rub from that. So they let the B-2s come in and bomb those sites because they had already moved all the important stuff, right? Now, they were kind of shocked that Mossad had snuck most of the killing of all of Iran's top guys, scientists and generals. Mossad had wheeled in boxes of drones, and they knew where these people were. And once they saw their shadow, they didn't have people shooting on. They just had the drone go through the window, ba-boom. So they thought they were going to decapitate the Iran. No, they just kind of shifted down to the next group, put everyone aside, and everyone was blown away. Well, surprised that Iran responded within less than 24 hours, right? So they sent in a whole bunch of missiles, and they had done it earlier, right? Like in March or April or whenever that was. And they sent in, 300 missiles. And they did it in lots of different ways. And all they were doing was, you know what Mark Twain means? It's like back in the riverboat days, right? When they didn't have sonar or radar, they'd have a kid on the edges of the flat bottom riverboat with a paddle wheel. And why didn't have big propellers? They had boats with propellers. Why did paddle wheel? Because the water was like that far from the bottom of the boat. So they would have kids throwing, a lead weight with a rope that had knots every foot. And so Mark Twain, 22, meaning the bottom of the water there is 22 feet, right? So they're like, 5 feet from running aground. So that's what the Iranians did, Mark Twain, So when, months later, when the B-2s bombed them, and again, every time Israel sent some aircraft like the F-35s, they sent a whole bunch of F-35s, Iran shot 3 of them down. These are supposed to be invisible airplanes that you can't see. They've shot down 3. So that's the invincibility of the IDF, right? And Mossad. So when, it's really interesting, when Iran shot in, their, 12 days of missiles, they basically And, Bibi says, oh, Hamas and their animals and all their military stuff is right next to the hospital. It's right in the hospital. It's right, And so they bomb the hospitals, they bomb the schools, they blow up the universities and all the houses. There was Hamas in that house, right? And so they do that, right? Well, Israel really does it. Puts up like their version of the Pentagon is right in the middle of their major city, right? Not Haifa, but the other one. It'll come to my mind. Anyway, right next to a hospital. They put this big facility, and Iran destroyed that facility. And not only that, killed umpteen, I don't know the number, but some people say 3,000, Mossad agents are not just the top guys, they got them, but they got the other levels all the way down to the basement. So they really don't have a Mossad anymore. They don't have intelligence. They don't have active people. They may have groups out there, and they may have, stuff like that. But so this and the war, they didn't stop that war. Iran and the United States, and so Iran just wanted to show America that they could reach out and touch them. So they sent 12 of their missiles, not even the really good ones. And America tried to shoot them down and didn't. And Iran put those 12 missiles about a quarter mile from the gigantic airbase in Qatar, right? Now, if those 12 missiles had hit that airbase, they would have destroyed it. But they landed them all in the same spot, quarter mile from the fence, right? And they didn't get touched by the Patriots. And this ain't the front line of Iran's stuff. This is like stuff from, 2008, right? And they put them all in the same spot. And they weren't hit by anything, because if they were, they would have marks. And so I saw pictures of them, and all you could see that these missiles were destroyed by running into the ground. They were still intact. They were still whole. There weren't any burns on them. There weren't any, concussive damage. So America and Israel is screwed. They are toast, right? And just think of all the karmic debt of killing all those people in the last 22 months the way they have. And we, the United States, we gave all the bombs, all the money, all that. And we're at a point where we don't have the money. It's like we can only make 600 Patriots a year. We can only make close to 1,100, what are those, Hellfire missiles a year, because we farmed out all of that to other places, all the little parts. We may assemble shit here, but we don't manufacture it here. So we're really in a. And what is Donnie doing? He's going to put tariffs on everybody else again, and basically everyone's just going to turn. They already did. You look at how Donnie is so. When he went to the NATO meeting a few weeks ago, and they just, oh, you're just so great, you're so brave, and then they wouldn't even get near him. When they took the group picture, they kind of were like standing, because he smelled so bad. And it's like, ugh. And he was put there for this transnational cabal that basically wants to destroy the global order, whatever global order there is we have, the oligarch order. They want to put in a Star Trek Federation, right? And if you guys have watched Star Trek enough, yeah, they got they have all these rules and regulations of how not to screw with people and first contact and all that. Just like we had rules to not do that to the Indians here in America. But anyway, we killed them all, except for a few, because indigenous people are really hard to get rid of. They're like worse than cockroaches, and that's they're starving the Palestinians to death, but they are First Peoples. They've been there long. It was really these guys, and this, I think, why they're taking out Harvard. This guy at Harvard did a DNA test on, the Hebrews and the Palestinians. And the Palestinians' DNA has been in that land for hundreds of thousands of years. They dug up all those kind of sites they dig up, the guys with the brushes, the anthropologists and the guys who dig up that stuff. and they get bones, and they can get DNA now from bones that are like thousands of years old, and they've realized that the 12 tribes of the Hebrews, they're more from Europe than they are from the Middle East. The Palestine isn't their homeland. Now, a lot of people are going to get upset with this, but don't worry. Don't believe a word I say. Nothing I say is true. It's all a joke. It's all a game show host. I'm writing stuff for Donnie to say, and it's no big deal. But you check it out. Go Google it. Google is great. So, Google changed its name to Alphabet, right? Why did they do that? You know why they did that? Because the corporations that own all the, what COG is? Control of government. And that's a corporation. You should go to Dark Journalist, right? His YouTube. And join his, darkjournalist.org or .com or whatever he is. And he's got his own bias, but Daniel is great. And he has Joseph P. Farrell on, who's just a hoot and a true scholar. That guy, he's no academic. He's like, you should go read his 20 books. They're really, so like Brotherhood of the Bell, he's got a ton of books that just blow your mind, right? And go look up any book, a good book about Edgar Cayce, right? And Madame Blavatsky. And so Daniel is a scholar of that. So he's a lot younger than I am, but there were other people who kind of brought him up that I knew well. And from the New Age crowd, which is the old age, of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early O's, I was kind of in that scene. No, I'd have to dig through I have some photos of events of that. And if I show you them, it'll blow your mind because they're all like the Madame Blavatskys of the, early O's, 80s, 90s, Bishop Tudu's cousin, people like that. Anyway, so, and every religion, like the Hebrew religion, right, is basically the Torah, the Tabla, and the Kabbalah, right? 3 books. Torah is like the everybody book, right? And it was not in Hebrew, it was in Greek, right? And if you translate the word Torah, so the word, Torah is a Hebrew word, and the Torah is in Hebrew, but in Jesus' time, nobody was reading in Hebrew. They were reading in Greek. And if you go to any good Greek library, like you usually have to go to the Mideast or Pakistan or Turkey or someplace like that, there is some really amazing, and the place that had the best libraries and the best schools mystery schools that still existed was Syria. And right there, up there where Syria almost goes into Turkey, this is where the Silk Road was. And everybody and his brother went through there. And so every religion there had a temple or a mosque or a mystery school. And in the 70s, I went there and spent a lot of time there. And it was mind-boggling. And Syria was a beautiful country. And it was no more screwed up than us, right? Really. I mean, in a lot of ways, they were a lot freer, because if you weren't political, if you weren't, in the government's face, you could do anything you want. You have any business, you could be really successful, you could make money, you could have a nice house, the kids could go to school, everyone was happy. I was there, I kind of tried, and I went through Sweden. I had friends in Sweden that I used to hang out with and, get a Swedish driver's license, because I would get a visa to go to Sweden when I would buy my one-way ticket to Heathrow from Freddie Laker. He was the one-stop traveling spot. I'm sure some MI6 or CIA, somebody would, because you could fly from New York, Kennedy to Heathrow for $75, and for another $10, you got a year-long Euro pass. You could get on any subway, any train, anything. And you could get a visa to almost any country you wanted to. And it was called, it wasn't called the EU, it was something union, European Union. Anyway, so it's more an economic, financial thing. So they had one where you could go to almost any place in the first 2 months. And if you set up shop in anyone like Sweden or Switzerland or Germany, not Germany, but a few other countries that were relatively non-aligned, they were not quite NATO countries. You could go anywhere you wanted to. I mean, like I went to Iran, I went to Iraq, I went to Syria. I didn't want to go to Afghanistan. It was a bit too. But I, Yugoslavia, you name it, I went to it. I didn't go to any of the Russian Iron Curtain stuff. That was, I was looking where I could just walk around freely, right? And so, but being in Syria was quite interesting. I'll tell you the story. So I land there, and I have this Swedish driving license that looks like an American passport, like anybody's passport. It's a little book, and it's got pages in it. So there's my picture, and there's all this stuff in Swedish and the Swedish stamp, and it's a driver's license, right? And they have all these pages because they don't have computers. So when you get stopped and you have an infraction, the policeman writes it in your thing. So if you ever end up in court, for doing something really bad, you have to come with your driver's license, and they say all the things you did because they don't have a computer, right? But if you get arrested, they write it in that book too. But it's all in Swedish. So I didn't have a car, so I would get, I had this Europass, but I got this driver's license with my buddy. I was living in Forshuga, which is a beautiful town right on the main drag between what's the prostitute town? Gutenberg, between Gutenberg and the capital, where the big airport is. It'll pop into my mind. But anyway, so you guys are supposed to be telling me when I can't think of something. You're supposed to fill it in, Anyway, so I'm hanging out in Sweden, and boy, was Gutenberg an amazing place. Because it looked like it just got finished being bombed in the war. Things were just all over the place, just like England was. When I first went to London in I guess, 64, yes, or 65, there were still buildings in London that were boarded up from being bombed. So anyway, I'm in Sweden, right? And my friend tells me, let's go down to Spain. So I have no money to do that. No. And he looks, he said, look, we're going to Stockholm. We're just going to take the bus to Stockholm, go to the airport, and see what flights we can take. And so we did, right? And we went here, we went there. And that's when I said, ooh, this is for me, baby. And so when you went to the airport, right? And you had no idea where you're going to go. They had this big board saying, if you can get at gate 6, the plane's leaving in 40 minutes, and there's 20 seats open. So you go down to the gate, you sign on, they put you on the list, if you were, 21, sorry, buddy. Or you can be on the list because maybe somebody won't show up, right? So they would take up to 50 names, I think, or so, depending on how many seats they had. Anyway, so I would do that. And it was like voting in New York now. I would go to 4 or 5 gates of, maybe I want to go to Rome. Maybe I want to go to Spain. They show, and I put it up there. And I kind of lined them up. So if one didn't, I could go to the next and the next. And within a day, if I picked 5, I was going to go someplace really nice. Because not only did I get an airplane ride to that place, but I got a visa to stay there 6 months. And I got I was going to go with a tour. So I got there to be toured around. Where's people coming from? I can hear people rolling on the roads, either the death road or the logging road. And I'm gonna, what time is it now? Yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock. I'm gonna finish up this. When I finish the story, I'm moving on. So anyway, So that's what I did. So, and it was great. They don't have any, because half these countries I used to go to were bombed into non-existence. Thank you very much, Democratic, Republican cabal. Go read Gary Allen's book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. He wrote it in the 70s, and he was part of the CFR. He worked for Dr. Quigley, and Dr. Quigley was one of my teachers, mentors. And he wrote one great book called Hope and Tragedy. There's like 3 books. Gary Allen's a great book to read, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. That's for the average guy, no big deal. But it tells you what's going on. Quigley's book, Hope and Tragedy. So he's a great scholar, great smart guy, Joseph Campbell's good buddy. And he said, well, if I am the Joseph Campbell of CFR, no one's going to know me, but they'll pay me well, and I'll have the inside track of maybe changing these guys' minds, right? So that's what he did. So the book, Hope and Tragedy, was the story about this, like all the good things he did and how tragically they didn't quite come to ferment, right? So, and the other guy who writes a great book is H.G. Wells. And his last few works were because he was a scholar at Oxford or whatever big whoop-de-doo college there. And he was a poor guy, right? And that's why he wrote those sci-fi things, because the first one he did was, I think, The Invisible Man. And he took it down to, there's this place in London where people was like Tin Pan Alley for music in New York. They had, books, because everybody's reading books, right? In the latter part of because printing became cheap and mechanized and industrialized. And so there were a lot of books because in TV, radio, nothing. So then that was for pulp. That was pulp literature, right? So he goes down to this guy, and the guy looks at, yeah, I'll give you £100. And that was twice what H.G. Wells' salary was as a lauded professor at Oxford or where he was. He was no adjunct. He was like, thought highly. But that's all they paid these guys, right? Unless they were Duke or Earl, but then if you were that, you had a lot of money. Then you were a fellow. You got a chair. Anyway, so, and that was England's early version of getting tenure. Anyway, he has a book called a short book of history, and it's like 10,000 pages. That book. It was the most well-read, most highly sold book of the 20th century, and no one knows about it. Like, between 1900 and 1938 or 1940, it sold more than anything, right? And then with each year, less and less people read it. And then by 1950, nobody read it. And then it was there, but no one knew about it. So go, but you can go on the internet and go get those books for like pennies. So go read those 3 books, and that'll give you a lot of information, so you can come back to the show and say more than the bullshit that you've been saying on this. I can feel your, like Lisa, I can feel who you are through our talking, right? 09, I know who you are. I mean, I don't know who you are, but I've been talking to you for a long time, so I've got it. And still you haven't, I haven't really checked my email, so I can't blame you for not, I don't know. And Mr. G here, OG, he's the OG Godzilla. So that would be TOGG, right? Tog. So Tog, thanks for sending me all that sweet thing. What's going on? That was so insightful, so pithy. Right? Come on, guys, read a few books and get back to me, and let's have some interesting conversation. So back to the story of traveling in the 60s and 70s. So on the government nickel, right? So I go all these different places, and you go through their customs, they don't care. They just look at you. The picture looks the same, bang, they hit it with it, right? But I was going to all these different countries, and people, they're fascists, like Iran, Iraq, and Syria. They were like, oh, terrorists, they're terrible people. No, beautiful countries, just beautiful people. And highly sophisticated and right on top of it. Yes, they had a secret police, but so do we. We call them the FBI. We have ICE. Do you know how much money they're going to dump into ICE? Enough so every American can have their own ICE agent beating them up, right? And they're not putting any money into judges so they can give these people their day in court. No, because those people are going to be us one day. They're putting money, the Alligator Alley, where they're putting the first really big one, and it's going to be 300 miles long and 10 miles wide, right along the Texas, Arizona border of Mexico. And 1.5 miles of this, my Gaza Strip, is going to be in Mexico. And that's what, and same thing with Canada. And that's why Donnie is doing all this tariff stuff to get real estate. He's a real estate guy. So don't believe a word I say. Go check it out for yourselves, kids. It's right there right in your face. If you can read more than a couple pages. I mean, I send all this stuff to these scholastics. Well, tell me what line to read. I don't have all time to read 3 pages of Really? Didn't you ever take the Evelyn Wood speed reading course? Come on. I can't even see, and I can read faster than these guys. So anyway, I remember going into Syria, and so the guys at the customs, they were like the secret police. They weren't the average, rent-a-cop. And so anyway, so this guy, and I'm wearing like shorts, cowboy boots, pink cowboy boots, shorts, and I think something close to this, and a kind of, they used to have this stuff called Madras, and I had a sports jacket that was Madras. It's like, you go to the tennis club, right? And I had a big cowboy hat and mirrored sunglasses. And I'm taking the airplane from, Stockholm into Syria, right into their main airport. And I'm, going in front of the custom guys. And he looks at the picture of me, and he goes, "Sir, please take off your hat and those sunglasses." He looks at me, looks at me, and he goes, and then I hand him the visa that is from the Syrian government, not, So I have this because they just print a zillion of them and give it to the Swedish government. And so if you're a Swedish citizen, you have total access into Syria, right? Or Switzerland, you have total access, right? So anyway, I show up and I have my Swedish driver's license wrapped with the visa, right? And when I hand it to him, it shows all the important stuff of the visa, right? Where it came from, who did it, my name typed on it, and my signature written on it. And then he opens up, and there's my driver's license. It's all in Swedish, so luckily this guy couldn't read Swedish, and he opens it up, and he looks at it, and he sees all these other countries' stamps on it. And I can tell you that he was like going, but he does this. He keeps doing this, and then looking at my dress and the pink cowboy boots, and he goes, well, this guy was a spy. He's like either the greatest spy ever, or he's just an artist. And he didn't say that, but I'm just looking at him, smiling, and I'm not in any rush, And so because that bus ain't gonna leave because I'm on the tour, my name's on it. They're not leaving without me, and so he just, after a few minutes of doing this, and he doing that like maybe to intimidate, to see if I break or sweat or anything. I'm just like, boy, this is a nice airport. Oh, I want to get an ice cream cone. Oh, look at that hat. I want to buy that. And he says, sir, you just let us finish this business, and you can go get your ice cream cone and be on your way. And so, and he spoke very good English, and but not, he never spent any time in America or England, meaning he learned really good English there at their whatever school, right? Anyway, so I go, fine, sure. So he does, and he stamps it, and he goes, have a pleasant holiday. I say, thank you very much. Hey, I'm coming. So I go get myself an ice cream cone and then buy a hat and then get on the bus, right? And there's still a couple other people, so they didn't yell at me for being the last one on the bus. And we go there, and we go to this unbelievably fancy 10-star, where kings and princesses go. And I got this gigantic room all to my freaking self. No TV, no radio. You can't hear any kind of anything, but it's beautiful. I pick up the phone. Yes, what would you like, sir? I want some drinks. And this is, it was alleged. Well, no, it was kind of not the Muslim kind of country that Iran was, but you could get any. This was where rich people were, so you could get whatever you want, right? Put it on your tab. I didn't have to pay money, right? And so, yeah, let's see. And I couldn't even read what the heck was. I said, let's see. Tell me, you got 10 things here on the, and it's not even in. Well, he goes, it's in English, sir. I said, really? That's English? And I said, well, explain to me what each of these are. And he said, this is lamb this, lamb that, lamb this, lamb. And I said, okay, well, I'll just flip a coin. I'll take number 5, right? So. And it was great, right? So that was yummy. And they brought up a nice bottle of white wine, and that was great. And a big thing of, Turkish tea that was like, you blow my mind. And some dessert, little cakes, and coffee, 2 urns, hot tea and hot, not coffee, like espresso. But they call it, the kind of coffee that we drink, they call Americana, right? So anyway, you drink that cup of whatever size cup of that stuff, you drank it, you were like jacked for hours. So anyway, this is the first night. So I take that and I go in and take a shower and scrub up, and it's great. It's like really, so, and then I go downstairs and I hang out in the bar, and they said, sir, we also have entertainment downstairs. And they have like a grotto Playboy Club knockoff of a really nice little disco, right? And they have people playing music, and they have this kind of never-ending thing of foods and bar, and basically it's for all the people of the hotel. But it's obvious they also have some very pretty girls that I don't know if they're paid for, but they're there. They're not, because you could tell who were the tourists and who, but there weren't other folks in there, right? And so I go to that, and it's nice, and the girls are nice, and it's very, can we see your room? It's like, nah, not really. I'm tired. So and so I wake up bushy tailed, have breakfast, and they take us up into the mountains where they had these temples of Buddhist temples in Syria. Go look it up. And the Syrian war was to destroy all of that history. There were about 20 different religions that had major sanctuaries there, meaning learning temples. Temple is like where you do ceremony, but a sanctuary is a learning temple. It's where the armies can't come in, you can't get beat up, they can't burn the books, that kind of things. But the U.S., the first thing that good old Hillary Clinton had blown up were those, not going after the Russians, but going after all those religious historical sites, turned them into dust. Go read about that. Go read what scholars say about what happened and what a great loss to humanity was, because there were things in those libraries that talked to what the world was before. And in the beginning, you have to realize the Old Testament is just a comic book description, so they can give a place. This is where everything started. No, things have been going on like a million years before and in the beginning, because you can tell, because the first thing out of God's mouth, El, right? El is Hebrew for God, right? Elohim is not God. It's the plural for gods. So when Elohim said, we will make man in our image and likeness, we were somebody's science experiment, and we still are, right? So, are you interested in enough yet? You want to make any? I'm sure the kids who made these comments aren't here anymore. No, there's nothing there below. But, who cares? Who's this guy? Gabradad, or whatever. Again, you got to put this stuff in capital so I can read it. So anyway, I'm going to go up here. So I hope you're finding this interesting. Again, so we go up that, and that's pretty cool. And we stay at this nice hotel up in the mountains where this place was. And so we go back and see another place, and then we drive to another place. And I had no idea we were going to see this stuff. I didn't read I just that was the place. I jumped on that airplane because that was one of my 5. And so they were leaving, so I jumped on it. So that's how I got to Syria. So anyway, so we do that for 3 days, and they're all really great hotels and all amazing places to see it. And the people I was with, even though they were older, I was like in my 20s, they were really interesting. They were like my teachers. So they were scholars and old people whose hobby it was to be a scholar, right? So anyway, so that's all great. So the fourth day, we're going to be there 7 days. Fourth day, we come back to the main, the capital city, and Damascus. And so we've been with these Swedish guides who live there, and Swedes are very interesting because Swedes in Sweden are boring. But Swedes who leave Sweden and go live someplace else are wild and crazy, right? The Swedish bombshell kind of motif. And so by the fourth day, I'm hanging out more. I mean, I'm still hanging out with the interesting old guys, but at night, I'm hanging with the tour guides. So they keep saying, once we get back to Damascus, we're going to show you a good time, because we had a really good time. And so we did. So we go out. They take me to 4 or 5, because Middle Eastern people don't eat like one big meal in one place. They have a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit, because this guy has the best fish, this guy has the best vegetables, So this guy has best desserts, best coffee. So and it's a lifestyle. It's not just a meal. And so, rich people, Western European rich people think that really good food is heavy, thick, rich food. No, it's not. It's whatever is really good. That's, made with the love and care of the respect of the person making it for the people who are going to eat it. So anyway, so we do that. For about 3 hours, we go to all different kinds, and we keep drinking different liqueurs. I'm not a big drinker, so I'm still trying to just drink a little bit. So but some of these liqueurs are more than that. Like I went into this place and I had this lemony thing. So I knew that was, Lemon's Yellow. That's an Italian liqueur, which is pretty strong stuff. So I just had a little thing, but it had absinthe in it. So it had this like little, almost middle taste. And I've had absinthe before, and it's a serious psychotropic drug. But drinking the lemon jello, which is really sweet, and when you have one, I basically, had this little thing of lemon jello, a aperitif glass, and I drink it, and these guys are having these big things. Now, and they were called, what were they called? It was a Brazilian word. It'll pop into my head. But anyway, those things were like rocket ships because they got absinthe in them, right? They got psychotropic drug in it. So they go, did you like that? So yeah, it's very tasty. But it too had the absinthe in it, but it had that metally taste. A caipirinha, right? It's this crushed iced drink that it's just, you have one, you want to have another and another, and by that time you're on another planet. So anyway, and it's a big thing. It's not the little aperitif. So I take that. Oh, this is great. This is like better than Carvel. Oh man. And so anyway, I drink that one, and then we go around, and every place we go, I get one of those. By the time we've had lots of tapas, and that's kind of a Spanish thing, but these guys, the Middle Eastern guys, do it too, right? They have all these little things that you eat, not all one big meal, right? So anyway, so by 1 o'clock in the morning, now it's time to go clubbing. Right? So, and I am on another, and I'm smoking hashish with these guys. And we're doing it like in the public almost, right? I mean, not really, but on the street, but Anyway, so we go from a club to kind of this, and by 3 or 4 in the morning, we're at this place that's like a poetry kind of place, and they are reading poetry. Now, I haven't learned to speak Arabic yet. And so the Swedish guys are kind of into this is really deep stuff, man. This is the spirit of their soul, and right. And so this woman sits down, and they know her, Marie. And so Marie glams onto me. Oh, you're cute, And so you're not one of them. I've already tapped them. You're my new. She said, you're my new boyfriend. And I said, that's right, honey. I'm your new boyfriend. And so she was explaining to me about everything about, the, you know, the politics of that place at that time, and how that family was hooked up to lots of, you have to realize that our government is run by the CIA and MI6. I said, what? I thought they were like badass, they hate America, death to America. She said, basically, any country that says death to America works for America. And she described to me what a loyal opposition was. Israeli funded the Hamas, and they still do, right? They give them guns. All those gangs that are there are Mossad crew to just keep it stirred up. Because if the Palestinians were just left alone in the Gaza Strip, you should see what that place was before Israel blew it up. It was amazing, right? So anyway, so she's telling, there's one cute girl who keeps squeezing the inside of my thigh, everything no one ever told you about what's going on in the world. This girl is brilliant. She's amazing. She's just like, right? So basically, we're doing this, and she goes, let's go downstairs. So we go down to where the real heavy duty up there, the average, citizen and maybe even the secret police can, it's like going to Rick's, right? But down in the basement, not so much, because there were secret doors and things, panels you push by, and still, I'm sure the secret police were down there too. So anyway, I'm almost like, this girl is like telling me more, and the whole time she's like sexually arousing me, but I'm so whacked out on whatever the hashish we're smoking and the Capa Caprinas with the, anyway, so this is like one of the most out of body drug oriented, because I don't do drugs. I don't really drink. I don't do any of that, because life is more fun while you're conscious, right? So, and I learned that deeper, and she's trying to pick this up. She's going, I can tell that you're totally, this is probably the most, drug, alcohol, whatever else, or, disoriented experience you've ever had in your life, but you're still, all these other guys are just goofballs. That's why, they're fun, they're nice, they're very cute. Once you get in bed, they can keep going forever, but you are and you're only, how old are you? 25? Oh, boy. I said, well, how old are you? She was 46. I said, what? You look like you're 17. I thought I was robbing a cradle. She goes, no, I am. And so we're having this, I am out of my mind, and she is totally, and so these guys are reading poetry, and she's translating it in real time and telling me exactly, and then describing it. And I'm just like, so I'm really, my brain is like super high charged and really, right? And we were almost telepathically communicating. And she goes, I want you to remember this, and you'll probably never see me again, but I have to leave now. I said, what? I was going to go home with you or take you home. And she goes, no, it's way too late for that. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I'm thinking, what do you mean way too late? What our relationship, she goes, no. I may see you again, but I probably won't. But I want you to remember everything and she basically did to me. I was under drug. I don't drug you guys, but she did to me what I do to you when we do guided meditations. She had put me, right? So anyway, we talk a little bit more, and she goes, okay, I'm going to take you out of it now. And I go, what? Yes. She goes, I'm going to, spool you back to this place and time. Right now, we're not in this place and time. You're seeing it, but you're not there. You're with me. And that's why I have to say goodnight, because I'm not really with you. And I'm going, what? Who's been squeezing my thigh? She goes, you have. I said, what? It's like, you got to be kidding me. And no, she goes, I got to go now. And your friends, they have already left. I said, what? And she goes, that door over there goes out. You really have to take a wicked piss. You've been wetting yourself all night long, and that's the thing that you've been squeezing. Anyway, I'm going, what? And then, she gets up and walks out. And then I'm in this kind of, bar room, and there's nobody else there. And she says, you exit that. There's no exit sign. She goes, go through that door, go up the stairs, and you'll come out on the alley, right? So I'm going, what? I keep going, what? What? And I'm looking around and there's nobody around. What? And so I go, well, I got to get out of here. So I go up there and I'm starting to become more lucid, right? And I go up the steps, I come on the alley, and I really, really, really got to take a piss. I'm wearing shorts, I lift the leg up, and I piss like a horse. Just, it's like going out to, like a waterfall going out to the street, right? And after about, a minute and a half, 5 minutes, I go, yeah, oh, whoa. And so, God gave us elimination because it's better than sex. When you really got to go, and then you finally do, it's like, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. So when I was going, oh, yeah, and I was holding the hog and, oh, yeah. And then because that's such a physical thing, I came back into the drunk body that I was. And so I my eyes are like, and I can't even walk, and I got my hands against the wall, and I go, which way do I go? I look at one end, it's just really dark, and I look at the other end, and it's dark, but it could be a street. So I kind of go out there, and I'm like, and I got my hands, I'm like doing this, trying to get out of the alley, and I pop out onto a street. There's no one there. It's quiet as could be, and there's this one black car, and it's this guy, he's 35 maybe, very tall, very good looking, very muscular, his suit fits him well, and he's smoking, an Arab, a Turkish cigarette, right? And I basically I'm doing this, my hands, and I don't see this guy leaning against the car, the black car, but he goes, excuse me, do you need any help? Are you trying to find your way home? And I go, and he goes, sir, you're seemingly inebriated and in a Muslim country, but we are a modern Muslim country. We don't judge you Europeans, but it's not really good to be this drunk on the street. So let me do a good deed. Islam is all based on hospitality and generosity, and I kind of studied Islam enough to know that, but my brain is fried. I'm not even hearing what he's saying. When Charlie Brown listens to the teacher and the teacher's going, wah, 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 wah. Well, it was more like, and I was catching every third word. Anyway, so he kind of puts me in the front seat, not the back seat, front seat, so we're right next to each other. And he goes, do you have your key? Because in foreign lands like that, they take your passport, which these guys took my driver's license, and they give you the key, right? But in all these countries, a lot of countries, I don't know about now, but back in the day, even in Europe, if they had a time, there were places in England and London, and if you weren't in by like 1 a.m., they locked the door. You had to go roam around until sunrise and come back for breakfast and then go to sleep. And that was the experience. So my hotel is definitely locked up. It's like 3 a.m, or almost, who knows what time it is. But I'm like, oh. And so he's over there, and he's talking to me, right? And I can even though it's like, I can kind of, and so he goes, I was educated in America. And I can tell that you're from New York because I went to NYU. And I go, huh? He said, yeah, I went to NYU college, and then I went to the law school. I thought, And so, and I, once he was talking about New York and going to baseball, and he really, loved the Yankees, even though they weren't the underdogs. He goes, I like the Yankees because they're not the underdogs. They have more money than anybody else. They buy the game, and they just crush their opponent. I like that. So anyway, I'm listening to him go on, and then I just nod out, right? And then I wake up, and I'm in my room, and I have no clothes, and I kind of piss myself. I vomited on myself a few times, and no, I'm clean as a whistle, right? I'm like, right? And my outfit is on one of these things that, it's like a chair hanger, and my shoes, my everything's clean, and my boots are all shined up, and it's like, wow. So I kind of put my clothes on because I got on the airplane. I didn't have any kind of luggage or anything, right? And so I was just wearing what I had. And so I walk out, I go to the elevator, I come down to where the lobby is, and this big lobby here. And the guy goes, "Ow." And it was a concierge guy. And he was the guy who brought me my dinner the first night. He said, "Anything you want, I'm here, I'm your concierge. And I'm Billy." I said, "That doesn't sound like an Islamic name." "No, it's not. It's my name I use here at my job as a concierge because no one can pronounce my name. So Billy, right? And it's easy. No one else hears Billy. So if I hear Billy, I know they're looking for me. So well, that's all interesting." He goes, "What's interesting is you." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Do you know who brought you home?" I said, "Some nice guy in a black suit with a black car who went to New York, to NYU and liked the Yankees. That's all I got." He goes, "No, he was head of, Damascus secret police." I said, "What?" "What?" And he goes, "Yes. And he has the key to every hotel, major room, right? So he knocks, he opens, he goes in, and then the people respond, right? So I know him, I kind of work for him. That's why I got this job. Anyway, so he's telling me all this stuff that you'd think somebody like him wouldn't be telling me, but he is. And so he goes, he's head of Damascus. He's not head of secret police all of Syria, but head of Damascus, the capital. And he's just waiting for me to come out of the alley covered in vomit and piss, and doesn't like, "Oh, you're making a mess in my car," and takes me back to the hotel. He said he had me help him carry you up to the room, take your clothes off, and hose you down in the shower and put you to bed. He said, "I've never seen that. I know the guy, I work for him. I've never seen him do that," right? And then he told me to, send send this guy's clothes to the cleaners, have them ready for him when he wakes up. Anyway, so he did. And then he says, it's way past, lunch, and everyone's off on the tour over there, but he's actually waiting. Why I didn't wake you up, but he showed up about an hour ago, and he went to lunch in one of the private dining rooms, and he said, "You should go see," he wants you to go down there, right? So he went down and he said, I go to the dining room and there he is. And I go over there and, I'm Mr. Diplomat. So I go over to him and I said, "I really, really, really want to say thank you. You were the most hospitable person I have met," and about, I just go on. And Billy explained to me the whole story, and that you're head of, and I don't even coach. I said, "And you're head of security in Damascus. So you're pretty high up on the chart there, aren't you?" He goes, "Yes." So I was able to, I kind of been, once you went through customs with your driver license and, that kind of, even the guy let you through, it's because one of my people just kind of went like this and he let me go, right? And I just wanted to see who you would, and I knew you were going to be with the Swedes and I knew the guys who were the Swedish guys, two of those guys are, people who were working for somebody else. And I knew those guys are so bored here that you would, your pink cowboy boots and your cowboy hat and mirrored sunglasses and Hawaiian shirt, you would be they would just love you, and that you would get totally whacked, and then they would be open and free around you. And then I could, when we were in the car, we only went 2 lights to when you were in a state of, what do they call it? Not REM sleep, but there's another kind of thing when you hypnotize somebody. And he said, I asked you every question I wanted to ask, and it was quite interesting. You seemingly have some training. And I said, "Yeah, I've gone to mystery schools." "Oh, that's it. That's why you liked those other places." While the other people they had been watching me the whole frigging time I was there. And he was open and free about, and I've known loads of people who do this kind of job, and they're never as open as this guy is. And it was like, he goes, "I love New York more than anything else, that you were a New Yorker, and that that's why I wanted you to come and have this meal with me. And you're going to be here another 3 nights, instead of going out with those chuckleheads, why don't we go out, right? And we can talk. And now I'm not going to, all I want is to, hang with a New Yorker. That's like you. You were you were like the hobos. You were like the bums on the Bowery. You were like Allen Ginsberg. I said, funny you say that. He was my roommate when I was, 16. And he says, that's why I want to just talk to you. Yes, I'm going to pump you for as much information as I can get out of you, but it'll be over nice meals and going to hear opera and ballet, and you're going to much better. These next 3 nights are going to be a lot more interesting for you, for who you are. But that guy had the ability to check me out from stem to stern. He knew my whole pedigree, where I grew up, how I grew up, everything, my parents, everything. And this is in 1973, I guess, somewhere in there, 3 to 5, right? Anyway, so I stayed longer than that trip, right? We had such a good time. I stayed another week, and he put me up in an even nicer place that was out in the country. He showed me everything that was like in a 200-mile radius of Damascus, and he took me to other temples, and we really had amazing time. And yeah, I taught him a lot, but I was just an artist guy, who had a esoteric kind of background. And once I told him, who my Catholic godfather was, he was way more. I said, did you ever go to the Vatican? Did you ever do this? I said, listen, they wanted me to be a rocket scientist for the Pope. And they were training me to do that. And that's where I got my first exposure to the mystery schools. And, who knew that the biggest occult folk are the Catholic, the Vatican, right? And he goes, so what did he that's when he kind of leaned into his job. It wasn't interesting talking about art and culture in New York. But he really, I said, I'll tell you everything I know. But by the time I was 16, when I went to this, I told him, I went to this school called Canterbury. He knew all about it, what it was, how it was organized, etc. It was Jesuit school, every university, every college in the world is based on the Jesuit, not the Greek, thing of the academy, but the Jesuit process. That's what it's called, the process. And because I was unprocessable, they couldn't turn me into a cookie. They tried to kill me a couple of times, and that's when my godfather, Cardinal Cushing, came and basically woke me up one night. I was sitting sleeping in the headmaster's house, and the headmaster had to go do something, and these guys were going to break into the headmaster and kill me because it was like I was a virus, and I was a virus. You go look at Canterbury and look from 63, 64, 65, and look at if you can look at the yearbooks. One of those is a yearbook that I actually took the pictures and made, and I was like a freshman, right? And I did all this theater, and they had slaves there, they had indentured servants, and I organized them into a union. And so on Parents' Day, we chained ourselves together with paper mache chains and wouldn't do any work. So the parents who came to, we found bed bugs. I mean, at school, there was some place that had bed bugs. So these guys were, did the laundry, so we got bags and bags of bed bugs and put them in all the bedrooms where the parents were going to be. And then we got even worse. And that takes longer to tell that story. So he knew all of that. And he's in Syria. I'm telling you guys, if you think anything is anything you think it is, forget about it. It's not. Right? I'd like to know there's 5 of you there. It'd be interesting to know what you're telling. But I know my little devices are totally stepped on. And it's amazing that they let me even tell you these stories, right? But so I would suggest you go back and look at the more than 2,000 shows I have, and whatever's interesting, put that old thumb drive in there and take down my show, because none of this is going to be around, pretty much. And all my devices that I've tried to archive my everything, they've all been, no one came in and broke in by just being on the internet, right? So I've they burned out about 5 of my laptops, right? So anyway, but I have a pretty good guru who can, scrape stuff out of them. Anyway, I spent another week with this guy. We had a great time. We talked about everything. And again, he was just like that woman. And then I said, so does that woman, is reason why you kept, offered me to stay longer, was that you're thinking, who was she? What is she? And so he goes, well, let's see. How can I put this? She's not, an enemy of the state. Not even close, right? She is so in another, he goes, I can hypnotize you but you have already been in mystery school, so I can't really you can't tell me anything that you're not going to tell me when you're just, drinking breakfast coffee, so I know that. But, when I got you in that car and we were talking about New York, I got you, the time, the 20 minutes to drive from there to your hotel room, you told me a lot of stuff, but no more than you tell me what, you didn't spill the beans about anything because you really don't have any beans to spill. I said, you got it, buddy. He goes, he goes, you've been through so many mystery schools. Well, I'm really only 5, that you've trained yourself. Not, you can be exposed to the information. You can be exposed to the practices, but to do what you've done to your superconscious mind, you did that, not somebody else. Because if somebody else did it, I could pick that lock, but you made the lock, so I can't pick it. But when you were in your Akashic record, I could look at the open data, and I could see that you're not a guy who has an ideology. You're not a guy who's pushing anything. You just are a guy who loves people who love. And I don't know how to tell you this, buddy, but you brought that out in me. And that's the real reason I kept you here for the next week, is I just wanted to experience this. This is something that I could do. I can't hang out with people like you that come from here. And there are. And that woman you talked to was one of them. And she's a few steps above you, buddy. And she's not even here. So there are a number of people. And that's why all those mystery schools, all those temples, all that stuff, we don't take it down, because they're the cinder blocks to who we are. And we know if we destroy them, yes, we're taking out something that is like we can't control, and we're control freaks. And it's right there, right? Now, yeah, we could, I could have taken you out to country. You were so drunk, and just put a bullet in the head and let you decompose in a field someplace. But no, didn't do that. I wanted to talk about New York City and poetry and ballet, and because I don't get to do that often, right? And that woman came to you, and that isn't something that happens often. And she came out of her usual guise, or places where we can't see, and I mean, she came out into the public, even though it was a basement poetry place. Anyway, so that's my story of being a tourist in Sweden, going to some pretty interesting places. And you can't do it because the Middle Eastern spring destroyed it all. Egypt, Lebanon, the place where Gaddafi was. That was a great. I went there. That was a great place. Now it's dead. It's fried. It's it's just gangster kind of guys. When Marvel is quite an interesting entity. Mr. Lee, Stan, all that stuff is what's going on. So the first one where Tony gets captured by some gangsters in Afghanistan, or I don't even know if they say Afghanistan, but right, and they want him to build a weapon, and he builds the suit to escape, right? That is the motif of the negative space of the human experience. And so when I was a photojournalist, and I went to, in 1984, I went and photographed, 69, I was at the Hapon Enterprise, and 6970, and I photographed a lynching. And I captured it in such a way that I almost got a Pulitzer Prize, but no one would publish it. My boss sent me there to do it. He knew how I took pictures and how I told stories and what it was. And he was, yes, he's a Southern boy, North Carolina, went to Duke, blah, blah, blah. And then he went to Harvard, and then he went to Oxford, right? So this guy was the guy who owned the High Point Enterprise. And his family were always there for truth and justice the American way. Anyway, so he sent me over there, and I was also expendable, right? So I went and shot this thing, and I captured the real essence. I mean, it'd take another 2 hours. I'd run out of battery to tell you that story. And I've told it a number of times on this channel. Go back and look at them. Anyway, and so, I left the town at the point where the hanging happened, and people they loved me. I kind of took pictures of everybody and then went to the pharmacy. I was there for a week and went to the pharmacy and had them printed up, gave everybody prints of their families and all this stuff. And I ate in their, And so I was one of them, even though I talked funny. I was a good old boy, right? So, and I was only 20, right? So anyway, or 19, one or the other. And so when the guy got lynched, it was obvious I wasn't a good old boy because I captured the moment. And the sheriff, who was, first night I stayed at his place and I had dinner at his home, and I talked to the kids and the wife and took their pictures. And then, the morning I went straight to the farm. He said, "Hey, print up 8x10s for this and put them in frames." Yep. So I did. And that morning, afternoon, I said, "Can I get this by lunch?" Yep. So I went to lunch with him. And I gave him all of these framed pictures of his family, and then I gave him prints of all the other ones, right? And he almost cried. He said, "I've never had a picture of my family. I never took a picture. I I was scared I didn't know what to do." And he said, you're so beautiful, so nice. Look at my wife, look at my kids. Oh, really, really. And so that's how I get the picture. I go to all the people that would stand in my way to do it and do that. But when he saw what I was doing, how I captured the moment, he realized that, ooh, that dirty rat. He got into my house. He did all this, and then he's going to go do that. They were going to kill me. Just like the Jesuits. Now, I'm supposed to be the rocket scientist, and I lift up the skirt. So anyway, I'm leaving that town. You better get out of town. And so I had a car already packed. I took the last picture, got in the car. He stopped me. He was standing, because I was taking pictures of the whole crowd and everything. And my large format camera, I took 20 pictures of the guy coming unconscious in his underpants, dragged across Greenville Common and put on the ye old nigger hanging tree. And that word is used in the proper context, that word, right? I didn't use it defamatory. So AI, come on, give me a break. Because that's what the plate on the 100-year-old tree said. And it was big limb, that's where you hang people. And his going in court, his trial lasted 22 minutes. They dragged him straight, and he was unconscious. He couldn't say anything. He didn't have a lawyer. They made their thing. They had the jury. They were all white men who were policemen. They all found him guilty. They all dragged him away, hung him. And I had my large format camera set on, I had these gigantic strobes, and I almost had it automated, meaning I had it stopped all the way down. So the depth of field, I got everyone in focus, from way far away to like 2 feet from the lens. And I had these gigantic strobes strung around. They were all interconnected. And every time I put in one of those frames into the format camera, the picture would be taken. I'd take it out, put it in the box, put another one, bang, 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 bang. I took 20 pictures like that of him being dragged up there, brought up to the thing, put on the news, and right. And so, and I went in, and I was there a week. So I went into the black neighborhood and got the story from them. I talked to his mother, his wife, his kids, his sisters, right? I got it all, right? Not just the blood that leads, right? So, and I only got 4 pictures of him hanging, because the rest of the pictures I was, with 1,000 people in that city thing, and they were all jumping around like it was a carnival, and they were hanging a guy who was unconscious and obviously bleeding from every orifice of his body. He looked like Jesus Christ, actually, kind of did, black man, long hair, but he told truth, right? So anyway, the guy does, chief of police, what are you doing, boy? I'm just doing my job. He goes, no, you're not. Just get out of town now. So I jumped in my car, had it all packed up, and drove away, right? Really slow. I wasn't going to break any laws. And I go down, there's nobody in town. I mean, they're all there at the Commons, and I drive out of town onto the county road. And just as, I'm still in town, but there's the county road, this black guy waves me down, don't even know who he is. He jumps in the passenger seat in the front, and it goes down the bottom. He goes, go up 2 blocks, turn right. Go 2 blocks, turn left. And he weasels me out of town. He goes, they're waiting for you out on the county road. They're going to kill you and take all those pictures and everything you have and blame, whoever. And so he gets me out the back way, halfway through that county into the next county. And when we're in the next county, he goes, you just stay on this road. This is a total farm road. There's going to be nobody on it. And it'll pop you out right there in the county where, Duke County, right, where Chapel Hill is and where High Point Enterprise is. And so I do all that, and it's, maybe 4 o'clock. It was not quite summer yet. And I pop out that road onto the county road. I go no more than a mile where the county line is. And my sheriff, who knew me well, basically was there waiting for me, right? And he says, okay, just follow me into town. I'm taking you straight to the boss. And that was the guy who owned the High Point Enterprise, right? So he goes there, and I have all the film. I have the plates of my former camera, and I have my little black book, that reporters have taken notes, right? So I drive in there. The police, there's, it's 2 police cars that, pull in behind me. So my sheriff that I know really well, and, he's not going to let me be killed. But he sent me there because the boss knew what I was going to do to that thing. And he told the police chief to call up that chief to say, hey, we're sending a really good old boy. You'll like him. And I fit the bill, right? Even though I spoke funny. And the way I speak, this I've always spoke. This comes from being choked to death at birth as a blue baby, and then being murdered by a Nazi nun in 1st grade. So it broke my jaw, the orbit of my eye, the little bone in my ear, so I can't really hear out of that. And my mouth doesn't line up, right? And crushed my esophagus. I had my esophagus crushed 3 times, right? So anyway, so I get to the place. They take me up to the boss's office, and there's the editor, the guy who prints. He's he runs the presses, and they had super duper high. This is in 1969, and they had cold type, not lead type, cold type. I mean, everything was run by computers. That's how rich this guy was, how on top of it was, right? So he's like totally, right? So I give him everything I have. They scan it, right? They print it, and it's the chemical. They had this great machine where you take it was like a dark box and changing bag. You put the film in there with your hands in there, and there was no light. You could take the film out and you feed it in this machine. The machine went. I was terrible at developing negatives, because I wasn't too, wasn't persistent on quality. Anyway, but normally I was doing this in Greyhound bus places, bathrooms and stuff. Anyway, so they do all that. The boss has some food for me to eat and something to drink, and I'm telling them the story of all of this and how it was, and they're recording it, and the editor, the guy who makes sure whatever is written the way it's supposed to be written, way better than Mr. Care. So he's taking notes, and he has had his best person taking my little black book and typing it into the computer, right? And again, this is 69, 70. It's pretty amazing. They were one of the first newspapers in the frigging world to have cold type. So go look that up. There's hot type and cold type for newspapers. So anyway, so within about an hour or two, everything's kind of written. Everything's in prints. They lay it out on the big table in the boss's office, and they're looking at it, and everyone's blown away. So none of these people are prejudiced. None of these people, they have whatever bias they have, but they're not prejudiced politically, socially. They want to tell the truth. They want the best story. And that was what High Point Enterprise was based on. And they had more money than God, so they didn't have to really worry about advertisers. So anyway, they do this, and my boss goes, "We can't print this." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You did too good of a job here, Al. You have totally caught what America is and its hypocrisy, and the Vietnam War is like starting to bubble, and because people don't know that we were in Vietnam like in the 40s, right? And Jack was whacked basically so he could really go in there full blast, and then after we allegedly got out of there, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 70. No, we were still there. We didn't really get out physically until like 75. And we were still there because we were in Cambodia and Laos and Thailand and we killed over 15 million people in that war over a 20-year period. It seems that's our, what we do. We did the same thing in Iran, Iraq, that same 20-year period. Anyway, so because it makes money. War makes money. Go read Colonel Butler's book that he wrote in the 30s. War is a Racket. Go read that book. And also go read Johnny Got His Gun. Go read those books. So anyway, my boss said, this is great. You need a vacation. Let's go. Let's go someplace and have a good time. This is pretty. So what he did was he goes, listen, we can't print this here. We can't do this in the South. We can't do it in North. We can do stuff that nobody else does here. And because we have so much money and power and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we can do it. But this is way past that. I thought you would do a good job, but you out friggin' did yourself. So they put all of that on the wire, the AP wire, and any newspaper that was on that wire could pick it up and put it on. No newspaper in all of America printed that story or those pictures, right? And the other thing about those pictures, I didn't get to keep the negatives, right? I wasn't, and so I had a few prints because it was put on the wire. So a lot of people took them down and kept them themselves. And so the only people who printed this was Pravda in Russia, the socialist newspaper in Sweden, and the one in Paris. And when I was living in Sweden, when I told people, I was a photojournalist back in the day, and I tell my name, and a lot of, some of the photojournalist people I knew in Sweden, they knew me, and they said, you almost got a Pulitzer. I know. I almost also got a Nobel, right? Well, yeah. And I said, that's the hubris and lying of, the imperial world, right? And so this little guy, but this one really interesting author told me that it's better not to have any awards. Because once you get an award, you get stuck as that, right? So you have to continue doing the same thing, And so I got to go. So that's the end of that story. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I want to hear from you guys. That's almost a 3-hour story. That's one of the longer ones I've done in a while. So I want you guys to get a hold of me, thedudeawake42@gmail.com. Okay? Come on, do it.